Good evening. It's not evening yet.
No, afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah.
I'm running all late. So you asked for it? And it's a pity that the acting governor general is not here, because I was also practicing for my next, well, not my next visit, my visit to England. My gloves, oh, I forgot my gloves. My visit to England. The English blokes here, I'm eyeing a few of them. I worked on the accent as well. Can't you tell? Now that you've been entertained by my hat, I'd like to introduce our next speaker. Oh yes, this hat was created by myself. I want to add that. And it's gonna mess up my hairstyle. But I'll never mind that. Our next speaker, she goes by the name Alison Francis. trade and development specialist, and she is a daughter. Just has a little accent that doesn't sound like ours, but it's okay. She gonna mix it up for y'all. Alison has been addressing services sector development. This includes the cultural and creative economies, education, spa and wellness, professional services, and financial services. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our next keynote speaker. She will tell you a lot more about herself. Alison Francis, everybody.
Well, I'm so happy to be here. It's unfortunate that it's right after lunch. But I hope I have the energy to keep you up and that you will give me the energy. Because for you also present, you know that we need to get the energy from the crowd. The thing with the light there, I can't see everybody, so those who yawning and so I won't see you all, to call out on you and to ask questions or anything like that. But I expect that we'll have a good set of discussion. I want it to be hopefully after we have some good discussion to understand, as we talk about here, the building blocks for a thriving creative economy. Now, in the creative sector, you mustn't stay one place. For those who in music, you must use your stage. Now, you got to use the stage, so I will try to use the stage, but then they put the monitor like this. So excuse me if I don't use the stage and represent properly, but I have to stay here because the monitor is here, right? But we're going to see, I think this morning we had many protocols. My apologies, protocol being observed. A pleasant good afternoon, and all protocols being observed. All right, good, so I could go on. I think I want to commend the government of Grenada for this initiative. I've heard discussions from other senior persons saying that the creative makes no sense. You're wasting time with the creative, but you can't say that. And I think, using some of the things what Keith said, when you talk about the creative, is because they're looking at culture, not just culture, and the creative industry and what it entails. And if we're going to talk about building blocks and for a thriving creative economy, culture and the creative sector, we have to be more open-minded. And as we think about these building blocks and what is going to be endgame for us, I'm so happy to be home because I could talk fast and nobody going to tell me slow down and stop. Because when I'm going to present other places, hold up, oh God, we don't understand, hold on. I'm home, so all you know, it gone through, right? I know not slowing down at all. You get to the program. All right, I'm really happy about this. So we're going to look at the building blocks. I think a lot was discussed. I mean, the speeches, the presentations early on this morning and into the early afternoon really started to cone in on what we need to do. And so I'm just going to try to build on it. As I indicated to when they called me to speak on this, I tell them this is about a week discussion. So I'm going to talk really fast, and I'm going to try to pack as much as I can in, what they tell me, I think half an hour. You hear that? Okay. But we're going to talk. So what we need to do, there's a lot of things, as I said, I could only touch some of it. So we have the outline. I put black so you all can start to sleep, and then I can give you all some problems. But we're going to look at, a brief background. I'm not going to go into much details because I think most of the speakers before me went into the background of the issues and, how important the creative sector is. I don't think I need to underscore it anymore. Then we're going to look at some issues about how you address the sector, the fundamentals that you need to do into, such as your market intelligence and so forth, your financing, and that's supposed to then guide you, hopefully by Friday, as we pull together what can be a development strategy for the creative sector for Grenada. And not just for Grenada, but the rest of the region. Because what we're going to do on Friday, we have to look at that regional agenda. Both the Prime Minister spoke of it, Keith spoke about it, and I heard just before lunch when Didicus brought it up. So it's something we have to think about. We may be small, but we're mighty, and there's a lot we can do. And I think we get power coming together, yeah? So without much further ado, some of these things were already discussed, yeah? It generates $2 trillion in revenue. But what I want to look at is in terms of the fact that the culture and the creative sector, really and truly, it drives the digital economy and it drives development. I believe it was in Keith's presentation where you speak about the contributions to the gross, the GDP. So it's not just about, and what I want to tell you all, it's not just about no longer just about hobby. What is the creative sector? The creative sector is a business. It's a hobby. You got to love what you do. Some people working and they don't like what they're doing, so they go to work when they get up in the morning, oh God, I don't want to work today. But with the creative, and that's why I love the creative sector. You know, you're always excited. You all always have the energy. So give me that energy. I don't sit down quietly, right? So give me that energy. It grows. It drives development. It drives the digital economy. It gives us the energy. We survive because of that creative sector. But then we tend to look at the creative sector in a silo. My apologies if I don't follow my slide, because I will just go when I start. I like the energy. No, you see, the creative sector, it drives everything. It drives the digital. It drives development. We tend to want to look at the creative sector. We tend to want to look at so many other things in a silo. But we can't. You can't look at it in a silo. Because later on I start to talk about the value chain and where you fit in. And sometimes you in the business, you decide you want to do everything. You want to design the outfit. You want to sew the outfit. You want to sell the outfit. You want to do everything. And then you wonder why you're not growing. But you know what? You've got to let go sometimes. But we are very risk averse, but you don't understand. You want to hold on to that intellectual property, hold on to that design. But the creative sector drives everything. For the business out here, it's not just about investing in the creative sector, but how we use the creative sector in what we do. You design for your bottles. You understand? You design for the labeling. Then we talk about the digital. How you create your advertising and graphics, etc. That's part of the creative economy. And you all need to utilize what we have here in Grenada. Excellent. Look at the production here. It's great. How we utilize that creative sector. Right? So if anybody want to bring me in on the slide, just don't hesitate to tell me you're going on for like too long, all right? So how this creative sector, how the culture and the creative sector, how it links to the growth and the digital economy. If it's one thing we learned with the COVID, it's the need for that digital sector. Yes, a lot suffered because in the creative sector, we are about socializing, coming together and partying and stuff, and we couldn't do that anymore. But what happened though, on the flip side with the digital, is that for those who registered and had their copyrights, and people still listen to a lot of music. People binge on Netflix, binge on movies. But where you were protected, you still got a little check coming in that could have helped you. So the flip side of this, and I know you'll be doing some with Dr. Koo later, is about your intellectual property and protecting your intellectual property so that you can get the revenue. You know, and we have persons in the film sector, etc. It's not about the big production because that costs millions of dollars. But you know, you could also have the production that can fit on your mobile, etc. So how you look at that? So when persons weren't able to go to theaters, but they're able to, yes, binge on their tablet, binge on their phones, etc., because you produce the suit. So later on, talk about not producing what you like, but looking at demand. And that's where the economics comes in. You know, understand? I see it again. I'm talking too fast. Slow me down. No. So the linkage with other sectors. Now, the creative sector. Tourism, you're coming to Grenada, I'm a senior job. When you see me and I have my horn and things passing along, you don't know nothing. I don't know anybody because there's certain beverages that we engage in that is made towards the further north of the island. I ain't talking about the one made in south, the one made further north of the island in the real old-time way that allows us to not understand everything. But, you know, you come here and there's a close link to tourism. Right? So the creative sector is about tourism. What tourism is? Or food. Everything is involved. And later on, I want to listen talk about digital and tourism. What about the virtual realities? And that will help us in terms of that building block. Look at a certain building blocks that will have something that is agile, flexible, moving with the time. All right? It is linked, as I said, to our manufacturing, and that's why I want our private sector to understand where we are. Help with our advertising. I believe, Mr. Killer, when we are doing during the COVID, and you're saying, right, it's not just about the performances, but doing the different gigs, you know, and advertising, etc. That really helps, so that you don't have to just sit down. Right? So how we visualize what we do. And if you really love what you do, it's not, you don't sit there and think it's just about, look at the linkages with all the other sectors and how you can contribute. And my advice to the government as we go forward in framing what this new sector, or the sector can look like, this new strategy can look like, is a connection with everything else. What's our development strategy? All right? So that we're thinking about culture as part of a major part of the development strategy, and it's a linkage to everything. I mean, I think later on in one of the slides I talk about our connection to the green. The fashion industry have a large footprint. We need to reduce that. So when you're thinking about development and you're thinking about the sector, how we can also reduce, how we can be green. People don't want to think about being green in the creative sector, but yes, you have to be green in the creative sector. How you can help that? So let's think about creative sector and green. And I'm saying that because we talk about financing. And where there's financing for, there's a financing for the green transition. So start to tweak your proposals to look at how you can make your creative sector more green and get the financing along those lines as well. So as I said, it's an inclusive sector. I just read it, you know. It's an inclusive sector. Attracts youth. Hey, youth and women. You know, it boosts our attractiveness because, you know, people want to come here, they want to come for a job. I mean, I really miss a Juve. And you have to get Tongue Juve, you have to get Sauter Juve, you have to reach across. Sometimes you might reach St. David's and stuff like that. But the thing is, you know, it's a very inclusive sector. It boosts our country's attractiveness. People want to come here. But as I said, when we look at our development plan, when we look at our tourism product, so many places have sand, sea, and sun. We have to make that difference. And how we make that difference and the importance of the creative sector. Unfortunately, you know, like sometimes we come and the food, we like the oil long, you know. And people don't, not everybody could appreciate, but cooking that oil long on a wood fire by the beach just tastes so much different. Well, you know the vibes. You understand? They don't appreciate that, but people have to learn, and we have to have these little, you know, entertainment blocks. It doesn't have to be, when you start to fashion your product, it doesn't have to be all fancy and dandy because people want to come to understand and appreciate your culture, how you enjoy what you do. And so sometimes I think we try to package it too nice. While there's an importance when you talk about internationalizing your creative sector to be able to be exported, that's something different I'll talk a little bit on. But sometimes, you know, people want to appreciate how you enjoy, if I'm talking to Lord, I'll just turn that down, you know. How all you enjoy the culture, we enjoy our culture. We got to make that to boost our attractiveness, link it so, as Keith said, it's not just about coming only for carnival. You have certain times, and I don't think I see Kristen here, but when you have the different theater productions and link that to what we do in the tourism sector so that they know certain times of the year, you have these things going on. So it's a product, and that's why I said it has to be a cross-linkage with everything else. Resilience amidst the crisis. And importantly, generates foreign exchange. Generating a foreign exchange, persons always believe, is when you leave. A point I want to make that hopefully I get more time to elaborate when I'm on a panel sometime tomorrow. A lot of people believe when you trade, you must leave your country. When you trade, you talk about trading in services. There are 4 modes, not to be too technical, but you talk about 4 modes of trade. There's online, where the services move. The producer of the service or the consumer of the service don't move. That's like music, film. You do everything, it goes online. Money comes from one account to the other. But you have traded because there's a foreign exchange. So don't believe that we're to export and increase the export, and that's why I want them to understand that when we talk about our building blocks. Don't believe that you must leave Grenada to export. You must leave Grenada to get a foreign exchange. All right? It can happen with the service moving, not the producer or the consumer. But I mentioned about the tourism sector, and we also have a big, St. George's University is huge. Yeah? Talk about people consuming, so persons who come to consume. So I've mentioned that already. So we look at it that way, persons who come to consume our services, really big. Very few persons go to establish, but you have that opportunity as well. And that's why we have to talk about another time, hopefully, about utilizing our OECS, our single market and economy. But persons don't migrate in the region very often. We like home bad in Grenada. Grenadians like their home bad. They like ours. I know living here, but I like home bad. I'm so happy when they tell me come down here, like, woo! I mean, I left my 2 daughters, and they really are upset and stuff, but I was happy to be home. It's really good to be home. So, you know, people don't leave as often as we think. But I'll probably say that when we talk about a regional program. And Keith said it, you follow the money. And sometimes you have to follow the money if even it means for you moving. But that comes to the next mode, moving temporarily. It don't mean that you have to pick up and go and establish, pick up and live. But if you need to move temporarily to produce, temporarily to provide a service, think about it that way. All right? Lord have mercy, I'm still on the first slide. So let's go. Sector analysis. You'll keep timing. All up on everything good. Understand the sector. Now, one thing I know for sure, it can't be a one-size-fits-all. And I'm using the stage. It can't be a one-size-fits-all. Because what you're doing in the music sector can't fit for the film sector, can't fit for the animation sector, cannot fit for the publishing sector. All right? And what I want to advise on, while we'll have an overall development plan, you must go down to the granular and the nuances that address each sector. It cannot be a one-size-fits-all. And the very important people have reached in now. And then that would require you, of course, to do a proper diagnostic, okay? How do you develop a thriving business? Because the creative, I said, is a business, it's not just a hobby. Just as you think about a business, think about it that way. Understand the ecosystem involved, other persons that are working with you. Hey, I catch you. The other persons that are working with you. What's the policy and regulations in place, etc. Do a diagnostic of the sector. And I was happy to hear when they look at the roadmap, and Orlando spoke of it. You know, you map your sector. Know who are the actors in the sector. See where you have that need. You can't be just developing a policy to touch everything. Develop a policy that would address what is needed. Yeah? And developing a policy that addresses what is needed for the sector, or where the sector can then be able to export and increase its revenue. All right? And as I said before, the cross-linkages with the sector. And even within your own subsector, whether it is music or fashion, you singing, you may be writing as well. But you can't be doing the production, the negotiations. I mean, give a little lawyer, some money, you know what I mean? Get your lawyer, get your accountant. You understand? But you want to do your accounting, you want to do your legal, you want to do your marketing, your writing, your singing. No. Understand the value chain, break it down. Cross-linkages within the sector. We had talked earlier, Keith spoke about investment. And someone spoke about, about failures and different things. Some investors say if you don't fail, they're not interested in you. Because most persons, you learn when you fail and you'll do better. And I'll want to invest with you because you have failed. So don't be afraid of failing. What you have to do is to learn from your mistakes and try to do better. All right? So develop your business plan. Develop a plan that is really agile and addresses what is needed. And that's what we have to think about in this whole building block. What it is that you need. What is that business that you're going to get involved in. All right? And as I said before, break down about the value chain. Understand your value chain. Understand your value chain here and the global value chain. Because sometimes you're big in Grenada, but how do you fit into the rest of the world? And that's why I come back later on to talk about not what you like, but what is needed. And that's why, okay, like Bob Marley, One Love, because it's a simple song. One heart. But when you're singing things that they don't understand, they don't know nothing about, they can't really sing with you. But sometimes the beat is good. I had to have an argument, I had to have it as an argument, when, some people are talking about us being bombarded by Afrobeats. And I said, no, it's about our culture and our creation. How could you talk about being bombarded by Afrobeats? So if you feel you are bombarded by Afrobeats, why you don't bombard them with your beat? You understand? It goes two ways. But you're only looking at what is happening and coming in. Why won't you think about going and give them your music? I'll come to that point again later on. But the point is that it is a beat, because some of them don't understand what Burna Boy is saying, but they like the beat. I sure you all don't understand. Some of them don't understand the language, but it's not true. Not true. They don't understand, but they like the beat. And come to my point, a beat. So you don't have to do the whole music. All I do is a beat. Oh, you see it? I get it right on. A beat. All it is a beat. And you can make, so you understand in your sector. And my point I want to make as you talk about building and business is understanding your sector. And you don't have to do everything, all right? But understanding and collecting your data. We had worked with Dr. Nurse and some others some years ago. And everybody's like, for the music sector in particular, that they want to go, they want to go North America and Europe. That's where they want to go. And without recalling the exact figures. So example, like the US and the North American market would have been like 60,000 in revenue. The European market might have been about 40,000. But the African market was, example, 1.3. Because we don't think about it, but that's where it's consumed more. But we tend to think about those traditional markets. Yes, we have the diaspora there, but think about who likes what we do, who understands what we do. We did some work. I did some work earlier on with some persons in the animation sector, and they did some things about the Jab. Now I get excited about that, and I was laughing and cracking up about the whole animation and baby Jab. But nobody else was laughing in the room. Yeah, because nobody understand that. But that is because they did not internationalize the Jab animation for the buyers. We had Netflix there, we had Sesame Street, we had all these people there, but they couldn't understand it, so I thought it was a great animation. But that is drawing me to the point where we talk about the linkages. Now, if we had presented that to somebody in the African continent, or those persons with buyers there with that market in mind, it would have been better appreciated. But I'm saying the point also is that understand the data, understand your market. So as you talk about building blocks, understand your market. And on that same point, I'd use the example of music again. You believe you want to go to New York. It's not all about New York, It's what borough. And that's why you have to even go down to the granular. If you're going to the Bronx, if you're going to, Brooklyn, is where you're going to be performing. It's not all of New York that wants to hear you, knows about you, will give you a sellout. If you have a who's selling your music, who's promoting the promoters, who's promoting the show, they want to know that when they promote that you come in, it will be sold out. So talking with Dr. Niles, another colleague of mine in Trinidad, I'll be working on looking at the music sector. It's the same thing as for his group. They don't talk about going into just one area to see who use your data, who consumes your music the most, and that's where you go. You don't go to a borough, and a promoter wouldn't want you there if they won't sell out. So data is really important. This morning at breakfast, we were talking about artificial intelligence, which helps you to collect data. But then there's the flip side of it, where people are now using artificial intelligence to, for lack of a better term, as a lawyer, I'll say lack of a better term, I'm not saying that they are doing it to steal the work. And they tell you, I did not do it. The computer did it. It wasn't me. So you have to be careful what you put into the system. But we need the data, So do your market research. What is demanded? Not just about a like. It's what is necessary. What is demanded out there. And so as we build this strategy, we have to make sure we are very focused on the market. What is it like by persons coming into Grenada? What is it like if we go out of Grenada? What is it like by persons who consume digitally, who's online? I have to make this point all the time. And we talk about if you're going to be producing for the young people, the older, what age group are you producing for? Who looks at your film? Who's utilizing your fashion and your design? The point about the market research and design, sometimes, I had to tell them about even our digitization of our design. Like somebody was telling us, what you have in St. Lucia, you have the Madras and you have the different prints. What's our print here? And they said in Jamaica, it's not a print. It's an attitude. The Jamaicans is how they wear their clothes. It's not a print. But I tell them, why don't we start, example, like I know we have the nutmeg, etc. You have the nutmeg on our design. So how you digitize that? Because in the fashion, instead of you painting every dress and you can only make 5 dresses, have you ever looked at it in terms of, okay, that painting that I've done that is so great, if I could digitize that, so instead of 5 dresses, that it can be now made into 10, 100 bowls of material, right? And you protect your intellectual property so that 10 bowls, you can make throw cushions with that, you can be making drapes with that. Once again, understand your sector, understand the market, what they like about your design, and what are you producing. Say, I like to produce dresses and I'm only going to produce a dress. If there is somebody likes your print, and they want to use it, as I said, for a throw cushion, they want to use it for your drape, something, think about it. So, and if somebody tells you, you believe that your design, sometimes, we had that discussion, I think it was when we was at the conference last July in St. Lucia by OECS, that you have the next best thing to slice bread. That your design, if a manufacturer or a company asks you to tweak, and you're like, how they could tell me to tweak my design? This is my design. But no, you must be agile enough to be able to tweak. It's not just about that. It's what is demanded. So sometimes you utilize clothing, you don't use breathable material. And they want to know if you're following all the procedures, etc. So sometimes we have to be able to adjust, okay? Understanding your market and adjusting your product to suit so that you can get the sales. Because when you go, it's about making revenue, it's about sales. Do your competitive analysis. Unfortunately, for a young man, they're like, I made this dress and it cost him about 4,000 for this gown that he made for Carnival. By the time we went through all the whole costing and everything, that same dress cost should have been charged at least 7,000. And he thought he made a profit. But you're in the business, do a competitive analysis, understand the opportunities out there, and don't underprice yourself. We in the creative sector tend to always underprice ourselves. Or we think we know our value. But sometimes it is much greater than we even think. Sometimes it could be less. But very often we have to understand about, and that's being very technical. When you produce something, whether it's a good or a service, understand your intellectual property, do your proper pricing, and then when you think about it and enter in a market, do a competitive analysis and make the adjustment. Don't just adjust. And so we have to, what I want us to be very structured in our approach. All right? Education. Education is key. When we talk about this building block, building our capacity. I like the idea of our technical and vocational education training. We have CVQs in the region. We do it with the carriacou, on different levels. Where are we with that? How are we pushing that here? Because not all about the university degrees, but certifications, specializations, etc. We need to look at it from that way and re-engineer our education to encourage creativity, re-engineer our education to encourage innovation and exchange, how people think about the sector, all right? So it started letting young people know that this is not just about a hobby, this is a business, all right? And as I said before, how do you internationalize your culture without losing your cultural identity? How you internationalize your creation, all right? It's a business. And we spoke earlier on, I heard them speaking earlier on about the mentorship and coaching. I've done a lot of training before. You finish your training after a week or 2 weeks, and it falls down. But you need to stick with the persons, do the mentoring, do the coaching, walk them through. Let them finish their product, finish their design, and then you help with the showcase. And that's what I want to encourage the government to do. As you do the training, capacity building, do the mentorship, do the coaching, walk with the persons right through. All right? Have it at different tiers, because not everybody will be at the same level. But this will be critical. All right? Understand best practices. But I spoke earlier on in terms of the private sector already. It's not just about investment, but how you use the creative sector as well. I think the private sector needs to, not partnership with us. And yeah, we train, and we need to train more on the use and development of new technologies and new ideas. All right? We go into digital, the virtual reality, as I mentioned before. All right? Let them know how to go to, what is that falls they have? Go down in Marquis, go down there. Camp. What is the name again? No, not the carriacou, man. Hear the non-Grenadian tell me the carriacou. I tell you about the waterfalls going up by Marquis and Hope. You know it's Marquis and Hope? No, you see what I mean? Mount Carmel, right. Walk through and let people experience that. A virtual reality, go into that falls. And so they want to come and actually experience it. Okay, so, train persons in virtual, all right. In use of new technology. Keith said it before, digitization and digitalization is really important. Yeah, it's hot inside here, and I like making me sweat too. Right? Or policy development. I think that is one of them. Only one more slide you all have with me, okay? Or policy development. As I said, it must be agile, it must be flexible. Dr. Nurse made that point. You can develop something for now. He spoke about what he did with his with TikTok and how things have changed. You develop something today, and by next few months it has changed, especially when it comes to the virtual reality issues and the artificial intelligence and what is happening with the digital economy and digitization, etc. So whatever we develop, it must be agile, it must be flexible. And most importantly, it must then guide the regulatory development. So often in many other states, you hear they put a regulation or they put some laws in place and then we have to follow. But policy must feed into it. And what you're doing here is really excellent, so I hope we get that feedback when we get to the workshop. Everybody here, all the creatives, you must guide what that should look like. And then the policy will come in place for us to stick to it. It must be informed by research, informed by data. It's not always about a feel. All right? We must have some data to support what we need. So collection of data is critical. I like the idea very much about the mapping, the idea about the platform to be created. And I think that creation of that platform, yes, a platform for exchange. You hear a lot of talk about building about community of practice and who's doing the same thing. You understand about opportunities. You understand about challenges, you exchange on challenges, you exchange on opportunities. Let's meet, let's have that space where we can meet for a short moment and exchange. And it's not about persons stealing the idea. It's not about stealing the idea. You have to know how much to give. You understand? How much to give. But we need each other. We can't do this alone. And we tend to want to do it alone too often. But we need each other. And so I like the idea of the whole platform and for us to exchange. And that exchange must not be just about Grenada, but exchange with, yes, the diaspora and exchange with other member states for the best practices so we know what to do. And even that platform is supposed to allow us to look at where there are opportunities for investment, opportunities for growth, etc. And as I said before, link the creative with other sectors, the green economy. So I mentioned that before, so I'm not going to go into that again. Because we tend to, very rare, when we talk about green, or you talk about your energy use and your water, electricity, and things like that. The creative sector, in many instances, have a large footprint that we need to reduce. So let's think of the creative also from the standpoint of being green, being more fit, more nimble, and impacting less on the environment. All right? So all the oil, when we finish job, and we take that squeezy, the oil on the ladder, and we take the squeezy and we jump in the carriage, and we take the squeezy and we go down Grenada. So, all that oil in the water. But what are we going to do then? How are we going to wash it out? I want some ideas, So you play that jab, and you have to wash out all that oil. That's a negative impact, but I shouldn't mention that because I play, right? But help us. Let's talk about a better way so that we impact less on Grenada Beach. I do not wash out in Grenada Beach. Yeah? I object. So I do not come to leave oil on Grenada Beach after I finish my jab. I ain't gonna tell you where I go and wash out though. But the idea is that how we can be more green. Let's think about the environment. By telling you stop jab, I don't tell nobody that because playing it still. Come the 14th, I'll be there. So I'm not telling you we stop in jab, but jab is not green. Oh God, that thing will be rough. Yeah, but you have to replenish yourself. And when you replenish, I tried that one year. When I done, I couldn't wash out. I had a real burning up. Don't tell me nothing about no charcoal. Unless you get a special, I tell you into this business, unless you get a special thing to grind this charcoal real fine, by the time you done play a juve, you real bruise up. You can't replenish that oil. No. Anyway, so let me stick to the program. Let's try and stay green. And as I said before, we're connecting to the overall development. Creative sector impacts on development, and we must make that connection. Yeah? So finally, I wouldn't say much on this because I know Keith spoke about it. The one point that I really want to make is about you reinvesting in yourself. Who knows what you produce? Who knows your product and service better than you? And to encourage you to reinvest. Reinvest in yourself. It's not as you make the big hit, you go and buy a new car, you buy a big TV, or all of that. Reinvest a percentage of what you earn back in your business that will help you to grow. That's something is very key. All right? But we heard from CAF this morning. We heard from, Keith spoke about it. There's financing out there, But the issue that we have is bankable projects. We come forward and we do not, so I think we have to look at the issue of our proposal writing, or writing for a project that the bank, yes, would want to give you that financing for. So we have to look at the issue of writing bankable projects. How we develop and we create our projects would help us to get the financing, because, believe it, there's a lot of financing out there. All right, so we have to work on that. And as I said, investment from other sectors, but importantly, the reinvestment. There's also opportunities of grants, partnerships. And that partnership is important because it's not all about you. You got to allow somebody to come into that business. All right? So partnerships become very important. Keith spoke about it already. We have the traditional, non-traditional, cloud financing, etc. And the value of your intellectual property. If there are anybody from the banking sector, I remember in my, I hope I didn't talk about, first I was glad she didn't talk about years of experience because I might know my age. And Keith go and tell people about how much years I working on this thing to try and make me look old here today. I understand you. But the value, I remember trying to get a loan, and they're talking about, they want to know about, they want the land, and I say, but I don't have this thing, so it's about my intellectual property. So I tell you, want me to value my brain? I say, I can't give you. So then I'd go and pull out all the contracts, all the different things I did, and then they give me, well, I say, that's the idea. How do you value the intellectual property? And that's what we have to look at. And for the non-traditional, to look at the issue of the value of the intellectual property. It's not all about capital and the different assets, but how do we value intellectual property is very important. I think that is something that we also have to look at when we talk about the financing of the sector. And yes, we spoke of the issue of incentives, but not just incentives and to give away, as the Prime Minister stated earlier this morning. You must want to do it, and you must be in it to be able to give back. And so that being said, I'm continuing to use my stage. I thank you very much. I think we have mentioned quite a lot on the building blocks for a creative sector. I look forward to more questions from you. That would allow me to then speak more on what we need to do as a country, as a region, to help to build the creative sector. It's really important. All right? So thank you very much, and do have a pleasant good afternoon.
I think that round of applause meant that you were really dynamic, and I love the fact that she used the stage. But just to digress, wouldn't it be nice to have a waterfall on the carriage, though? Is that a Minister Andy question?
No. You have to go in the bush. You have to walk in the bush. You know that word, Mama Gay? She Mama Gay. Yeah, she Mama Gay.
No, that just means I was listening. We'd like to ask, if I may, I know there are some people who want to ask questions.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, Miss Allison, you can't go after you talk about waterfall, you put this image in people's head, you just want to leave. Questions for Miss Allison. She was so good.
All you ask a question, I just tell all you know. I warned all you. And as an educator as well, you have to ask a question. All right, let me use the stage again.
There is a question.
Raise your hand. Wait. Move left, move right. Raise your hand, come on.
I'm here, Medea.
Good.
Yeah, man, I'm here. Hi, everybody. Afternoon. One of the presenters, but I really have a question for you because
Sure.
I'm also borderline in terms of getting a better understanding of collaboration, creatives. First of all, amazing, fantastic presentation. I actually understood everything. But my question to you is, sometimes we wait until other people do things for us. And the biggest question I have is, how can us, I'm from Jamaica, and I'm in the creative industry there, right?
Right.
And I'm here and I'm networking with some amazing people so far. My sister from over there from New York. It's just great and a melting pot, and we're planning to hang out and all of that, right? But my question is, as a region, how can us, the people, figure out ways to cross-collaborate without necessarily waiting on government, without necessarily waiting on some magical resource out of the way, but how we do that effectively so that at the end of the day, there's some framework and something that's crafted so we can all win in the end?
You just got to believe in yourself and do it. Tonya, your same friend from New York. Tonya, we had a fantastic Caribbean rhythm showcase last year in Jamaica, right? With about 18 different artists. We had from Grenada all over.
We had 2 representatives from Grenada, right. And I saw them, Riggy.
Riggy there. And the idea is about you wanting it, right? And if you want it, you're going to find the financing for it. And so okay, we may not have the financing this year, but we're going to be pushing, not so? All right, Tonya, we're going to find the money.
So like Lotto say, you have to be in it to win it.
You have to be in it and take that risk, take that step forward. Believe in yourself. That's the first thing I'm saying. Believe in yourself that this is what you want and you can make it. People like, I don't think I'm big enough. I don't think I'm good enough. And so, we stuck with artists. We went with artists that are new, but never out there, and they made a big difference. Tonya could tell you now there are big hits on the platform. But it's about believing in yourself and believing in what you do, what you have created, and go out there, and you'll find bankable projects. You'll find persons who want to invest with you. It comes back to the point I made. You want to partner. You want people to partner with you. You don't want to do it on your own. A lot of times they want to do it on their own. Believe in yourself, partner, and you can get it done.
Another question from our audience.
Hello, I'm Ariel. I'm involved in the creative industry as a somewhat influencer. I like to think of myself, but I also run an agro-tourism company that is a cultural product in its own respect. So to build on what you said, actually, the benefit of such a new endeavor is that we kind of get to help build the framework. We kind of get to just, like you said, believe in ourselves, make those networkings, make those connections, and forge a way for the younger people after us to be like, oh yeah, this is how they did it. This is the channels they used. But the question I have for you, you were talking about valuing our intellectual property. Is there a Caribbean, I don't know, somewhere we could go to find creative property that was already valued, or how do we start, where do we begin to value it? Because if we were to value it, we know our value, but you were talking about don't be scared to charge your prices. People fight down creatives with their prices. It's very real. So how do we, or what kind of established body can we lean on to be like, okay, this is what they said, this is my value, and we have the things to back it up. So where do we find that?
We have our expert, actually there's a presentation this afternoon at 6 o'clock, right? That speaks specifically to that. I don't know if you want to...
Yeah, that's the UE lecture.
The UE lecture that speaks specifically to that. This afternoon to call in on where you can, how you get that information, how you actually value, whether you say your copyright, your designs, your patent, etc. So, do you want to make a quick response, or you leave it for? So they'll be talking to that tomorrow as well. They don't want to give in. They don't want me to give away.
Jump the gun.
They don't want me to jump that gun.
There's one more question. Oh, lots of questions back there. I saw Dr. Jules. Please, we'll take your question and then we'll take the other 2. Is that okay? Sure. Thank you so much.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Akeem, musical artist based in Grenada. Question. So we speak about collaboration, we speak about all the procedures necessary to get the package out and ready to roll. Now, what advice do you have for us as creatives as a means of creating and securing the bankroll to make these things possible?
Creating what to make it possible?
To make all these processes possible. To get the money. How do you get the money to make it happen?
The bankable projects. No, we don't have anybody from the banking sector in here, but two things. You need to have your business plan. You need to have your financing. Very often the bank asks you about your financing. How many persons keep their information? And you have your bank account. You know, one advisor, they always say, if you even say put in $20 every week and take back out the 40 the next week, show that there's movement. So have your business plan in place. Have a plan in place, all right? Show your accounting, you can keep your data, etc., so that when you put forward your proposal, it is something that they can see, they can read to, they can relate to. Obviously, and to the point about you may fail before, what have you done? What are the risk and risk mitigating actions that you will take? So you have to be very precise in terms of what that proposal or what that project can look like. But we go down to the specifics. If you tell me exactly, everything it will pertain to what it is that you want to apply for the loan for, all right? And then you'll go into these details. But some of the major things is make sure you have your documentation. Make sure you have a proper plan in place, a marketing plan. And this is a project, and that's why data comes in. This is a projected revenue over how much period of time, so they know that you can pay back your returns. And they show that you have a level of responsibility in the financial sector because of how you have managed your account.
Thank you.
But Akeem, don't put $20 and take out 40.
No.
Take out 5.
Take out 5.
Next question.
Good afternoon. It's not really a question. It's, first of all, my name is Harmony. I am also known as the Nutmeg Princess. I am a social media manager and also an influencer, full-time. And it's more so a petition to the powers that be to help us as creators, content creators, influencers, to create an infrastructure to where these platforms can be monetized by us in the Caribbean, because as it stands, we have to jump through a lot of loopholes to get monies that are due to us. We're putting out the content, we're doing the hard work, we have the numbers, we have the engagement, we're marketing, we're out there in full force. However, I can't even say regional counterparts, because the rest of the Caribbean struggles as well. Right now, YouTube is the only platform that monetizes us as creators, and most of us are based in Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, some of us as well. And that is where most of our brand deals come from. But the bulk and the majority of the salary or the monies that we can earn is from the monetization of these platforms. So we would need the powers that be to assist us in getting that monetization. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments and contribution to the discussion. Dr. Jules.
I'm going to pick up where Harmony left off, because the notion of the powers that be, and two things: empower ourselves and also connect our own dots. So here I have on my phone an OECS Visual Arts Creatives. This is a group, after meeting many young people across the OECS who are into art, photography and painting and so on. We figured, how can we help them? Because many people have come to me, usually artists, saying, when you're going to set up a cultural desk at the OECS or different desks, sports desks, I don't believe in these things, because you hire people to do that and they become bureaucrats who are, instead of empowering the sector. So the point is, the artists, the creatives have to organize themselves, and that's a fundamental philosophy for us at the OECS Commission. We are not setting up departments to deal with culture and creative industry. This group is just a start. One of the things I want to do, and that's a concrete suggestion to the Unleashed people, is coming out of this conference, because we are going to, I already said that to Orlando, use Grenada as the lead country in the OECS for the creative sector. Yeah. Right? So the point about that, and there are very practical reasons, because one of the failings of regional integration is that we always believe there must be unanimity and everybody must be on the same page at the same time. No, that's not real life. So it's a coalition of the willing and the able. Whoever is ready to move on something, we move on it. And as the results show, other countries would come on board. So no, I don't want to take too much time, so save the applause, right? I'm talking practical things that we can do. So the idea is in every sector, whether we're talking youth or creatives or consumer rights, let us create a capacity for the sector to empower itself. So this group of creatives, what I've said to them, the artists, don't tell me what you want OECS to do for you. Tell me what you want to achieve for yourself and what it is, the conditions that you need to succeed as a creative. Now, based on that discussion, as the discussion proceeds, you can see them beginning to coalesce because truthfully, initially, there was a lot of fighting, people arguing with each other and so on. But now they're coalescing. And more the discussion is, these are the things that we need. Now, we as the OECS can come to, I said once, the next stage is for us to form, you yourselves form, a formal association of OECS creatives. You use Zoom and so on, you can use our facilities to meet our Zoom accounts and so on, form this association, and begin to, once you are legally registered, because I don't want two people coming and say we are an association. Show evidence that you are an elected grouping, even if you have 5 cents in the bank, that there's financial propriety in the running of the thing. Once you do that, any suggestions you all have as to what needs to be done to boost the creative sector, we can convene a meeting of ministers of culture or ministers of finance or whoever to take these ideas, to receive them, and for us to now start to work on that. So you see the point about empowering yourselves. And already things are emerging. The artists are saying to us that, listen, tax on materials for painting and art is exorbitant. Now, the governments are not going to listen, even to us saying remove tax. But if we have a formal association, we can say to the governments, all registered members of the formal association should be entitled to tax. And beyond that, we introduce them to people who are into NFTs. If you see the piece of art that was sold for $32 million as an NFT branded work of art, was something that any child could do in kindergarten. But 32, now, no disrespect to the artists, but I'm saying if that could make $32 million, and I'm sure, based on some of the artists I have in here, that we can have, within 2 or 3 months of setting up this formal association, we can create 4 or 5 millionaires of artists in the region. So there are ways in which we can do this thing, and let's get practical about it.
We will have a final question for this segment, and then we have to move on to our panel discussion.
Pleasant good afternoon all. Protocol already established. I am Alistair Amada, aka Lyrically Inclined, an actor, poet, writer, now in Tropiny, have my own company, Team Lyrical. And to build upon the foundation, forgive me, your name slipped me.
Oh, Alison.
To the two previous persons that, forgive me, not too good with names. Okay, as a creative right now, right? I'm overwhelmed, to be honest, because the struggle is about, but let me say this. The conversation right now for local, this process should not be rushed, one. This process should not be rushed. It should be so pure and authentic. Make it all local. Work with the experts. You have RKD, you have the experts in the house. They're here. Work with them. Make it so authentic. And mind you, Miss, I heard you mention about when you internationalizing, don't lose. We have to be careful. Yes, we regionalized and work with Latin America, but we have to be careful with the higher powers, right? The higher powers like countries of America, China. And what I'm saying, influence, we have to make it ours and not lose ours. So what we're bringing to the table, we can portray our culture in such a way freely that no one can come and say, okay, you could do this, but not that. portray not only culture, but what we stand for as a society, tradition, morals and values, because understanding the intricacies of theater and where theater came from, theater started on the basis of morals and ethics, encouraging and empowering people. So the goal was not to be long, but I'm just saying, as student of the art form, understanding the backbone where theater came from, the performing arts came from, is always to challenge and criticize society to be better. I thank you.
I think that's the importance of everybody being here and to give your input when we get to the workshop, because it's about building what Grenada wants, what you as a creative want this document, this framework to look like. So,
awesome.
Well said. Yes.
I love it. Thank you. And just a little tip, and this is something I learned. When you go to lunch and when you go to tea, find somebody new to talk to. You know Kijana already. You know Hapa already. Find somebody new to chat with. All right? We want to. All right. I will take 5 minutes from your time tomorrow. Right? I'm borrowing 5 minutes.
I only want pleasant good evening, everybody. I have to speak, but I just wanted to say this quick as Akeem walked up here and mentioned finding the money. And I want to say this because I'm sure there is people from the bank and stuff like that, and it's very important. They're outside. I want them to hear this. We have a habit here where we don't believe in our own gems. So I know that I have to speak, but I wanted to say this because you made so much great points, but I sat there and I wasn't going to say anything, but my spirit would trouble me later. I went to the bank, I have an idea, went to the bank, and it took me almost like 4 months to actually get a loan. Somebody like me, that my money passed through the bank all the time. I have more money in the bank than the loan, right? And it took me so much time to actually get a loan here in Grenada to actually back an idea that I have, that I literally canceled the loan and did it from my pocket. Cash. We need to learn to believe in our own, our people, and our creative industry. Thank you so much.
Sama, thank you. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Miss Allison. You are amazing, and the applause can tell you that. The questioning will also testify to that. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to move on. We're running a little late. We're trying to speed it up, but I don't want to speed it up too much because all of this is so good, right? But we're going to save some for tomorrow, all right? Our next panel discussion, well, our first panel discussion for this event is called Emerging Trends, the Evolving Landscape for Culture and Creativity. Our panelists, Mr. Kwame, I do not want to mess up that last name, so you have to tell me in my ears, right? But Kwame, I'll call him Mr. Kwame. You good? All right. So Kwame is one of our panelists. Please come up and join me on stage. Kwame is an artistic director of the Young Vic Theatre. And of course, for those of you in theatre, you know there's the old Vic. He's the Young Vic. I like that though, the Young Vic. Young Vic Theatre. He was artistic director of Baltimore Center Stage 2011 to 2018 and artistic director of the Festival of Black Arts and Culture Senegal 2010, where he wrote and directed the opening ceremony at Senghor Stadium. As a playwright, Kwame was the first African Caribbean to have a play produced in London, West End. His plays were produced at the National Theatre, where he later created the online resource, the Black Play Archive. Give him up, we need to chat. Where's Kwame? Our second panelist, you met him earlier today, Mr. Keith Nurse. Let's welcome Mr. Keith back on stage. And then our third panelist, Simon Frederick. And Simon is he's an artist, photographer, filmmaker, and director. Simon is highly respected, a self-taught artist, photographer, filmmaker, and broadcaster, he was honored to be included in the UK's 100 most influential Black people list. Look at you. So we want to thank these panelists for agreeing to be a part of this panel discussion, Emerging Trends, the Evolving Landscape for Culture and Creativity. The moderator for this session, let's welcome Mr. Orlando Romain. Could take a 5 now.
All right, mic test, mic test. How is everybody doing this afternoon? 1, 2, 1, 2, can you hear me? One, two, 1, 2. Urban. All right, your technicians are sorting it out. Good to go? Urban? All right, there we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen. How are you feeling so far about this conference? All right. Let's give it up for the planners. Let's give it up for the government of Grenada. Let's give it up for our regional partners. Let's give it up for our friends and family in the diaspora. So this afternoon we're going to be discussing a very important topic as we go about on our mission to develop the creative economy here in Grenada. Dr. Keith Nurse, in his presentation, spoke about the case for the creative economy. Why should we invest in it? What is it? But as we embark on this investment, we need to ensure that we invest for the future and not for the past. And therefore, we need to consider critically the emerging trends that are impacting the cultural and creative economy so that we can factor these things into our developmental plans. So I want to thank our panelists for agreeing to have this discussion with me. I'm going to start off with Dr. Nurse. Dr. Nurse, thank you for your presentation. And based on what you articulated, there's quite a bit of things that I think any country who is serious about a creative economy needs to consider. What are the key trends and changes that's happening in the global landscape that Grenada needs to consider when developing its creative industry for the future?
Thank you very much, Orlando. Maybe I can pick up from where the last 2 or 3 commentators from the floor raised issues. So, for example, Mr. Killer talked about...
Go ahead, talk.
Am I on? Can you hear me? Okay, you can hear me now. All right. Thank you very much, Orlando, for bringing me up first on this. I want to respond by commenting on the last 2 or 3 comments that we got from the floor. So, for example, Mr. Killer raised the issue of getting a loan, going to traditional financial institutions and accessing credit. Now, I know I said that in my presentation, money is not the problem, but we need money to lubricate the processes. You need to ensure that you can generate a return on that investment. And so we do need the institutions, the financial institutions, to play a critical role in this regard. Now, the traditional banking systems in Grenada and in the rest of the Caribbean have very outdated constructs as it relates to the global economy. Right, so, and to be more specific, so for example, our banks don't know how to value intellectual property. And now that's something that we have been working with the Caribbean Development Bank on changing. So last year, we organized a workshop, online workshop, for bankers and other financial institutions on how to, one, value projects from the creative sector, how to value intellectual property, how to understand a business proposal or business plan that would come from a creative. We had people from all across the region. I think all told we had 60 plus participants. And it was well developed. I think we need to applaud the Caribbean Development Bank for moving in that direction. The next stage, I think, is really to ensure that these financial mechanisms are actually in operation. And that people like Mr. Killer can go to the bank and say, listen, I see that you have this lending facility. I want to be able to access it. So that is a critical element of the equation. The other point that was raised was the issue of having industry associations or networks, which is what Dr. Jules raised. Now, I don't think people really understand how this really works, but you have to go back to, let's say, 18th century Europe to understand how this is a critical element of the global economy, even to today. Artisans and so on created their own communities so that they could negotiate it. If you cannot, as an industry, negotiate with the people who are buying your services, it means then you are subject to the market. So that's why in the United States or in Europe, if you're in the film industry, you have to be a member of the guild or whatever. And they set rates which whoever is purchasing those services have to abide by. Or if they're contravening them, have to explain why. That gives you negotiating power. So it's interesting because I've interviewed many people in the creative sector, and one of them who's been around for a long time, he says to me, he says, freelancers are being paid less today by advertisers than they were being paid back in the 1980s. And that's because they don't have the leveraging power to be able to say no and don't have the next creative around the corner saying yes. And that's the power of creating industry associations and networks so you are able to create that mechanism for negotiating and having leverage. Now, this is old school. This doesn't require no new technologies. This requires a capacity for coordination, collaboration, and building cohesion. So there's some old school things we need to do, as well as some new school stuff. The new technologies actually allow us to create these mechanisms better than in the past. It's just that we are not using them for that purpose currently, at least not well enough. So I wanted to comment and leave my comments on that for now.
Thank you, Dr. Nurse. So the takeaway from this is there's strength in numbers. And someone posed the question, how can we get a bigger pie in the creative market? It really starts with the individual. But if the individuals come together and create associations, cooperatives, it gives you a lot more bargaining power. And in speaking to the minister, our government is poised and ready to assist any creative community or creative subsector to form associations underwriting the legal expense for that. So I'm throwing that out there. Organize yourselves into groups, music association, film association, visual arts association, so that you have that collective bargaining power. So I'm jumping to Kwame. Now, there was a saying that creativity is a human domain, and algorithms would have never been able to replace us. I think ChatGPT and other generative AI has shown differently. Kwame, I know a few years ago you created an entire theater production using artificial intelligence. Can you tell us how is artificial intelligence reshaping the creative landscape, and how can our creatives position themselves to take advantage of AI?
Thank you. First of all, can I just say how overjoyed I am to be a diasporic Grenadian coming home, hearing the quality of this conversation. I applaud you, your Prime Minister, and everyone who has facilitated it thus far. When you travel far, you want it to be good, and it's excellent. So thank you so much. As to AI, in my humble opinion, I think AI is everything right now. In terms of the trends of art, period, there was a moment, maybe about 10 years ago, where, as you said, one could see that AI and work in that area was going to compete. But it wasn't going to compete with the artist. That was always my boast. And I remember really clearly in about 2017, sitting with an executive from a big company that holds literary works. And I used that boast. I said, yeah, but they're not going to take us. And he said, yesterday I sat in a meeting and we listened to a computer creating a symphony. And I've got to let you know it's as good as anything that I've ever heard. And from the moment that I heard that, I began to get fascinated by AI. And as you said, to the point where 18 months ago, I produced at my theatre a piece by AI that ran for a week. And part of the reason why I did that is because I was naturally afraid of it. I think the natural Grenadian in me says, if I'm afraid of something, I must run towards it. And I must find how to negotiate with it. And so, yeah, we hit up ChatGPT and we said, can we do this play? And how we set it up was that we had an audience, a new audience every night, and we had 3 to 5 actors, and a director. And we let the audience do a prompt, and they went, hey, do a play about a man coming home in the tone of Donald Trump. And within seconds, it was there. And we played with art. One of the world's greatest architects, Sir David Adjaye, created a pyramid for me to project the words that it was being, so that the audience could see what was being created. And chat, within seconds, it created that scene. And then my actors would start playing it, and then my director would redirect them, and then we would put another prompt back in. And I would say by the end of the first show, one of the other things that I found most interesting was we are known to be a diverse theatre in terms of audience. But often when we talk about diversity, we don't talk about neurodiversity, we just talk about racial diversity. In terms of audience, I had never seen such a diverse audience in terms of techies, in terms of people from different walks of life coming in to sit in that audience every night and prompt the computer to write the play. And at day one, that play was relatively simple. We got through Act 1, and I went, we got this. By Act 3, on day 5, it was talking about the existential questions that we ask ourselves as human beings, and it was doing it in a poetic fashion, without the need for a secondary prompt. What became very fascinating to me was that audience members kept coming back night after night to see its development. So we developed a new audience base simply off doing that. And by the time we got to the end of it, I was challenged as to why would you do this? And I come back to the simple point that for me, it is not going away. AI is about how we make it need us, how we dance with it, how we feed it. So that was the experiment. For me, I think as creatives, it gives us loads of brilliant opportunities. And I would finally say, and forgive me ranting on, I would say, if you look at the 18th and 19th century model of art, of painting, right up to now, you know, the actual artist wasn't painting their work. They had a group of young people who were around there doing the work for them, and they would do just a bit of direction around it, and off it would go. And I think that's the way we're going to have to use AI. We have to make it allow us as creatives, when we have those 10 new, brilliant ideas a day, AI can make us have 50 by the end of a week. How do we dance with it? How do we make it use us? I think is the challenge of the third decade of the 21st century.
Kwame, thank you for that. So key here, I think it's the ability for us as Grenadians and citizens of the world to be able to retool fast enough to stay abreast of AI. The things that AI will do innately better than us, I think we need to move a step up, focusing more on the conceptualization of things and problem solving. I think that's our sweet spot, and so certainly our education system needs to be tailored to ensure producing more problem solvers and creative thinkers. So Kwame, thank you for that. Simon, my good friend. Creativity and technology are colliding in ways they have never done before, creating a new operating environment for the creative industries. This has certainly been so or true in the film and music sector. As a filmmaker, director, producer, how has the advent of technology enabled you to reach more markets, create better products, and in general, how is it transforming the film and music landscape?
Thank you for having me. As a diasporal Grenadian as well, I'm happy to be home. So thank you for having me. I didn't expect to get a clap for that, so that's a bonus. So thank you. That's a really good question, Orlando. For me, I made a documentary for the BBC in 2018 called They've Gotta Have Us, which was really about black people and their struggles in the art form of film. And that had literally every A-lister, every Academy Award winner, every BAFTA winner, that we could mention, from Spike Lee to Whoopi Goldberg and everyone in between showed up to talk to me for this documentary that we made for the BBC. Now, that was amazing. Oh, thank you. The BBC at the time said, right, this is a great documentary, we should distribute it around the world. So we went out and spoke to the BBC's distributor, BBC Worldwide. I went into a meeting and we sent the project to them beforehand, so they'd seen it. And when we walked into the room, the head of distribution said to me, "This is a great project, we really like it, but it has too many American and British stars in it to make it viable for worldwide audiences. So I scratched my head, being a curious Grenadian, and thought to myself, I'm sorry, but this sentence doesn't make sense. So I said to him, look, treat me as an idiot. Could you please repeat the sentence again? So he said, well, you know, I think it has too many British and American stars to make this viable. And I'm thinking in my head, well, Whoopi Goldberg, you know, is a worldwide star, sells all around the world. You know, it's like all of these people that we have, it doesn't make sense. And then it dawned on me that his sentence only made sense if he put in the word that he admitted, which was the word black. Yeah? Now, I made a phone call to one of the people in that show, David Oyelowo, who at the time I'd made the show, and I was actually at home convalescing from cancer, which I'm pleased to tell you that I was cured of. So I was in bed, and David Oyelowo had told Ava DuVernay this story. So I'm in bed, my wife hands me the phone, and Ava DuVernay is on the telephone. And she says to me, right, okay, I'm not going to tell you here because it's going out around the place, the word that she used, but it began with F and it was them. Next thing you know, the show was on Netflix. Okay? So she distributed the show through her Array Corporation to Netflix. Now, this show also became, because after George Floyd's murder, this show also became the first show, one of the first shows to be a black show to end up on the masthead of Netflix, because Netflix hadn't had any black shows on their masthead up until that point. So I'm telling you this very convoluted story to make a point. The point is that things have changed considerably, and the digital markets have changed them considerably for us as black people. Because before, what used to happen was that we would have to go to the likes of the guy at BBC Worldwide, who would tell us that black shows don't work internationally. Yeah? What we found through digital markets is a democratization of black content. What's happening now is that black people, I mean, we're probably the largest diaspora on the planet, right? We speak different languages, we come from different cultures, we come from different countries and islands and whatever, yeah? But for the first time, we can share each other's content. We can celebrate each other's cultures. We can watch each other's films. We can listen to each other's music without a colonizer being in the middle telling us how to and when to. And that has become the biggest thing for us. The other thing that's become the big thing for us is that, you know, we were talking earlier on, and we were talking about about Black Panther and the impact of Black Panther. I wrote my film because of the impact of Moonlight. Before Moonlight came out, I had drunk the Kool-Aid and believed that a black film was basically a film that had black people in it and was watched by black people. When I walked into the cinema, very confused because there was a bunch of white people in the cinema, and walked out again and checked my ticket and then went back out again, I realized that that wasn't the case, that audiences had worked out very early on that there was a democratization in terms of the type of content they wanted to see. And black stories for other cultures had become a thing that they wanted to see. Yeah? So my point is that there has been a real sea change through the digital markets that have allowed not only black people to basically watch and celebrate content from other black creators, but for other cultures to actually celebrate black culture as well. And that puts us in a really interesting place that this conference, I haven't heard anyone talk about in this conference yet, and I want to mention, and be it the last thing that I mention because I've been rambling on. But that is that the largest commodity on the planet at the moment is black content. It's the content that you're making.
Thank you, Simon, for that delivery. Before I open up the floor for some questions, I'm going to pose one more question to the panel, and you can feel free to take a stab at it as you so pleased. With all the disruption happening, my question is, how can traditional cultural forms coexist with new digital media that exists today? We have TikTok dancers and we have traditional ballet dancers. Where's the convergence? How can we move the traditional art form into the digital space without diluting the core cultural form? Because if you look at TikTok, it's more about sensationalism and hype. Some have actual good content value, but how do we transition and make the most out of digital technology using our traditional cultural expressions?
I'll let the artist go first.
I've just been,
I think often, it's a very brilliant question, and I think often that when we think about art, we kind of create false binaries. And I don't know that there is when it comes to art. Because I think it was someone who spoke earlier on who said that, and I paraphrase badly, but they said that if the art that you're creating is standing still, then you're not really creating art. Culture doesn't just sit, it is a moving target. And I know that I wake up every morning as an artist and I go, if I am creating the same art that I was creating 5 years ago or last year, then I'm not creating the art. I'm an administrator of my art. I'm not a worshiper of the thing that the all has given me. And so ultimately, I think there does not have to be dilution in finding the way to translate your work into a medium that will get it from A to B. There just isn't. And again, we look at TikTok and we go, TikTok is very cultural. In China, TikTok is educational. In the West, it's recreational. It has a very, very clear agenda. We can dance ourselves to oblivion here, but they're saying, yo, let's educate ourselves into a position of superiority. And so it's also looking at how we use the technologies, how we use the platforms to actually serve our cultural positioning. And so for me, there's no binary. Whatever we were doing as an artist, if I can do it live, I can find a way to translate it into the digital form because it's simply about adaptation and distribution.
Well answered for me. Is anybody going to take a take on this one or no? All right. So,
I can.
Sure.
One of the things I've done recently is visited a few universities and colleges that have what we call maker spaces or fab labs and so on, where they're doing everything from robotics and 3D printing and so forth, virtual reality. And it's very clear that the threshold for creativity has moved in the sense that even traditional manufacturing now has this higher level of creative content into it. And so, to take Kwame's point, we are still thinking that creativity is something that belongs on a stage, when in fact creativity is embedded in almost everything that we do. And we keep training people to think that the arts is about entertainment. So I'm currently engaged in a project whereby we are generating digital tools like animation and so on for education. That's a very distinct market and a very large market. So we have tons of animators all over the Caribbean, and all they're trying to do is learn how to make, either video games or whatever for entertainment. And I'm like, but there's a huge education market out there. Animation and gamification is being used in the health field. That is creativity and the use of these same technologies. So we have to flip our paradigm from this notion that creativity and creative economy is all about people's entertainment. That paradigm is what is blocking us from all of this other potential. So I'm trying to set up these 3D facilities so that young people can start doing the experimentation, the proof of concept, and so on, where they use 3D printing, and then you use the traditional extractive manufacturing methods to scale. But you do the experimentation in a creative way in a fab lab or in a makerspace. Now, the region is way behind the curve in these areas. But when you look at the quantum and investment that is required, it is not that significant. We are wasting that kind of money every day in the Caribbean because we are not being strategic. My point earlier about strategic intent. And that, for me, is where the processes reside. Because the issue at hand, and Kwame really hit the nail on the head here, the issue is about cultural updating, not about the preservation of culture. That's where the new strategic intent is, I would argue.
Can I? Hello? Yeah. Right, okay. Yeah, I just want to add to that because it's because you're talking about manufacturing and design and whatever, and I think that creativity is in so many different facets and areas. But if we go back to really the essence of the question, I think that one of the things that, how many people in this room are creatives? Hands up, please. Right, everyone, okay. All right, so I'm at home, I can talk to you, okay. So basically, I think that many of the people sitting in this conference today, we're all suffering from one thing, and that is insecurity, yeah? It's an insecurity, it's like, okay, I want to make this thing, whatever it is I want to make, but it's like, will anybody else like it? Yeah? Can I make money from it? Yeah? And can I internationalize it? Yeah? Because basically, you put anything on the internet, it's international. Now, going back to the question about culture, I was doing some work for the camera manufacturer Leica. And we were basically finding young black photographers to give money to bursaries so that they can continue their practices. Now, the guy that we gave the first prize to is a guy who's been going to the Congo and photographing the religious practices of the different tribes in the Congo. Now, I remember when I sat there and I watched this guy's work, and I'm making the point because basically we're talking about, can we take the things which are culturally, the things that are
traditional,
culturally traditional to us, and make them appropriate to other people, yeah? So that's the point that I'm making here, yeah? So when I saw this guy's work, remember, it's a young guy from the Congo, never met him before, and I'm looking at his work, and there are black and white pictures, right? I saw them dance through here today, yeah? Shango. Yeah? Sorry? Thank you. But he had photographs of these people in the Congo, yeah, taking part in these traditions. And immediately I saw his photographs as the connector point to everything that's going on in the diaspora. Yeah? So the point is that we can use the TikToks, we can do those things to, it doesn't matter what you are trying to make or what you are trying to say. Yeah? There is an audience out there who wants to listen to it. The problem is getting it out there to those people. Yeah? So the insecurity that we have is whether or not people will like the work that we're making, I think is something that really is a cultural thing. Yeah? And I think that, the words of this conference is unleash. I think should unleash the cultural stigmas that we have about whether or not other people want to see our work. There's always someone out there who wants to see it.
All right, Simon, thank you for that. So I'll open up the floor now to anybody who has any questions for our panelists. Please, you can use the mic to the center.
Good afternoon, all. My name is Tiffany Strawn. I'm a musician, and I'm the founder and director of Ghost Music Services Company. I wanted to ask about the synthesis of culture, as Dr. Nurse was talking about the synthesis of, not synthesis, but the updating of culture. So my parents grew up in the 70s in Grenada, where there were a set of cultural values that defined Grenada at the time with colonial backings to it. But also, there is a sense of culture now that has evolved post-revolution and post-Ivan and these kind of things, and with the evolution of technology. So my question is, how do we evaluate, okay, is this colonial given culture ours, or is what we're making right now ours?
That's a magnificent question.
That's a great question. Yeah.
May I?
Yes, go.
I won't get it right, but I often say, a wonderful question, if I may say. One of my pride achievements is my daughter Amele, who's with me today, and who came over from England with me to actually take this in. And the reason I say that is because she's going to be bored about what I'm about to say. So I'm just giving that caveat. The thing I say to my children often is that we must judge our parents by their dispensation, not by ours. By the context and by which they were born and they were raised, not mine. I don't judge my father by mine. And so consequently, I can look at a colonial mindset, and I can look at the magnificence that came out of that, the artistic magnificence that came out of that, despite all of the barriers, despite the subconscious and conscious inferiority that was bred into us as black artists at that time. I can say, how much did you have to supersede to create great art? And so consequently, that art is theirs, because it is born of blood, sweat, intellectual power, but most importantly, the power to supersede circumstance. And your art today is equally as valid as you are superseding your circumstance, as you are negotiating with your rules. And your children, I can promise you, will look at you and say, yo, mom and dad used to do that old thing, but now we're free. And they too won't be free, because we're all caught up in the Babylonian system, and until that's done, we're going to keep on thinking that we are reinventing the wheel. We are not. We are simply standing on the shoulders of giants. Your parents were giants, and so are you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Riggy, a songwriter and artist based in Grenada. We spoke about AI a few moments ago. And my question is, because AI really creeps me out personally, my question is there a thing that's going too far? And if there is, are we going to be able to regulate AI to prevent that from happening? In the context of, you spoke about AI music now. Now it's to the point where AI generated voice is a thing. So you can have AI generate a performance of an artist. And then you have ChatGPT make the song. So then you have an original composition by AI performed by whatever artist you want. So then what is preventing now a record label or a streaming service from creating their own AI artists and never having to pay a content creator? What is preventing YouTube from creating a content AI to make their own YouTube videos? What is preventing Instagram from doing something like that? What is preventing Netflix from doing that?
Nothing.
Nothing, right?
Nothing.
So my question is, how then can we make AI lead us? I know you spoke a little bit about that, but I'm not sure how we can prevent something like that from happening.
Can I?
Yes, sir.
I did this interview with will.i.am a few years ago, and in the middle of the interview, he started to get quite frustrated with me because he felt that I was speaking in kind of old terms about film and music. And he asked me if I had any kids, and I said yes. And he said, are any of them into AI or tech? And I said, why? And he said, you know, you have black kids, right? It's mainly white people who are writing AI. And if we are not involved in writing those algorithms, we will be left out of the story. Again. So it's really important that we don't run away from AI or it creeps us out or whatever, yeah? It's really important that it is something that we get involved in and we use as a tool, because I think that there is a way in which we think that is not being utilized. And I think that only when we put our flavor and our sauce into it will it work in our favor.
And may I augment, unless, please. I think and building on what Simon was saying, our job as artists is to find the crack and then excavate it. And so that's the gig, yo. Ever was it thus? And if AI is coming to challenge us, again, I keep going back to that. We have survived the transatlantic slave trade, and we're standing here having this kind of discussion today. That was existential. And yet our ancestors created dub. Yeah, it's gonna be hard, fam. It's gonna be challenging, and many of us will go to the wayside. But the lions and lionesses amongst us will find the cracks and will excavate it and will create stuff that it won't be able to. Why? Because we have Menelin.
So we're going to take...
I can't top that. I'm so not even going to try. As a student of what we call techno-economic paradigms, I've looked at the global economy over the last 200-300 years, and the period of transformation we're going through now is not unusual. This has happened at least 4 or 5 times in the last 200 plus years. And it always generates a lot of trepidation when the new technologies are raging ahead. And the technologies always move faster than regulation or intellectual property mechanisms. Right? So we're creating new modes of what it is to be an artist long before the intellectual property regime is in place. So this is going to go on for another decade or two before we figure out how to manage the processes. But just to remind everyone, and this is why I am a historian in part, is that, when manufacturing and factories were being established, there were people called Luddites who used to go around and try to mash up the machinery. So we can't be neo-Luddites thinking that, well, we need to mash it up. Now, I'm a little bit concerned about AI and how it's galloping. I think it's running ahead of us. We probably need to do some stock taking, but we also need to be investing in how to use it to our advantage. Because if we are just on the sidelines, it means that we're out of the game. And that's why you have to be in the game. The point that Kwame is making is that, right, and Simon is making, if we are not in the game, then other people are making up the rules and shifting around the goalposts, and we're out, and we're not there. So that's what we need to do, invest in those processes, and quickly. So, for example, one of my staff members is doing a master's degree, I think, and also a PhD on AI for education. And I'm like, yeah. But how many other people in the region are training in this area? And the answer is probably on one hand. And the thing is, that's not good enough. We need to have 20, 30 people or more, 100 people training in this area and deliberately training in this area. Not waiting and hoping that all will be well. This is why I use the word strategic intent. We keep always being surprised that the world is not working in our favor. Well, I'm like, what have you done to make it work in your favor? And if you keep waiting on somebody else to invest in your future, you'll be waiting a very long time. And in fact, we are betraying the work of our forefathers and mothers that brought us to this point by waiting on somebody else to choose our path to go forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I know this discussion is very enlightening, and we would like to allow as much questions as possible, but we're tight on time. So we're going to take the last three, and then we're going to cut it off. Last one.
A pleasant good afternoon once again. I just want to say congratulations on everything here this evening. This is so interactive, this is so beautiful, and this is the first time I think I'm a part of a conference that I just feel like I really want to be a part of. Riggy said something a while ago, and it struck a note when he said that I am, afraid of AI. I just want to say I want to speak to the artists, the performers, and the artists, as I am. AI mean artificial intelligence. I am not artificial, I am the real thing. And I want to say that I don't want to compete with AI. I want to be able to control AI. You see? And AI may write a song, but it wouldn't be the same melody that I would sing. And AI would not perform and raise a roly-poly like me, never. You understand what I'm saying? So I think for the artists and stuff, I just wanted to make this statement that I think sometimes here we become afraid, but Kwame said something very important. We have won many battles before. We have traveled long and hard to actually be here. We have been chained and abused, and we still survive. There is something in our blood that is what I don't even know how to call it, but it's a vibe, an energy, not just the melanin, but there is a memory. It is called genetical memory, and as you say, our foreparents before us are giants. And I want to say to all the creative people here is not to be afraid of AI, but to have the ability to download from the greatest computer, which is the Father above and the universe that there is, that even AI is not able to duplicate. We are the real thing. Thank you.
I don't want to cut them, so I'll take the last one.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Christopher Roger Williams, and I am a trained actor, teacher, educator, also a lecturer of the arts. What I want to ask you is that Having looked at the Caribbean, I noticed that the arts is used mainly for performance and other things within the area. But focusing on drama, I realized that in the Caribbean, we have not focused on the therapeutic aspect of it. And so I went further to develop a drama therapy program here unique to the Caribbean that I call Mentor Peace, where I treat victims of abuse, gender-based violence, trauma, and depression. And so moving from this stage, I have made a call to help persons to live a better life and to cope with challenges. What is your take on artists visualizing drama as therapy or the arts as therapy instead of just a performance or content creation?
I know that I know we don't have a lot of time, so if you go, I'll just be really quick, if I may. That is what drama is. During lockdown, all we did was tune into Netflix. That was therapy. That's exactly the right, it is three-dimensional. I commend you, brother, on taking what is fundamentally ours and using it as the healing arts.
And, you know, it's really important for youth empowerment. But also, I think at this conference or last week, someone was saying to me they're using this drama performance in prisons to liberate mostly young men from all the trauma they've experienced in their lives. So the capacity of using the arts in all of these frameworks is something that we need to be doing. We need to move our engagement with crime beyond the justice system, to see it as a public health issue, but actually to use the arts as a critical mechanism to liberate our young people. So I want to endorse what you're doing. We need to escalate it to another level.
All right. So we'll take our final question before we close.
Good afternoon, everybody. Before I start, let me just say I'm very excited to be here. Good? Right, so I'm very, very excited to be here. And it kind of making me nervous because I'm so excited. So I had to write down what I wanted to say. Otherwise, I'll come up here and just green fall it, right? So a little bit about myself. My name is Rhonda. Most people call me Ronnie. I am an actress, a spoken wordist, content creator. I have a CBQ in community cultural performance. I love dancing, so I want to take up the task of doing choreography. I wrote my first script for an animation for a group recently. And I was recently asked to write a song by an artist friend, which I feel really, really good about. Now, I'm here speaking on behalf of course, myself and for the youths in the art industry, right? So when I was younger, growing up, I grew myself into the arts, the creative arts. Now, I started writing when I was in grade 5, grade 6, around there. And I remember I did a piece called Bumblebee. It was a piece on Bumblebee. And finishing that piece, I felt I was so brave enough to go up on a stage, right? And at the end of it, nobody clapped for me, which was a bit weird, right? But it's okay, because I felt so good that I know I wrote a piece, and it had a little spark inside it. You know, so I just felt so good about it, because I kind of feel a little passion inside, right? So moving on, I joined WAG, which is Writers Association of Grenada, and that is when I started, you know, figuring out myself as a poet, writing, and so forth. And then I did a CBQ in community cultural performance. Now, in doing all of that, I tried to find myself as an artist try to get gigs, right? And to find a work, a career out of the arts. But then growing up doing that, it was very, very hard, because you would go to people and then they would look at you like, okay, you want to do this, but then you don't have experience. But then at the end of the day, don't we need experience? If you all understand where I'm coming from, right? So we still need the experience. So what I'm asking is that how do we keep the youths motivated? All right, because they know what they want, You feel me? We know what we want, we know that what we want to do, and then we know we could do what we want, right? But then sometimes going out to ask for help, we don't get that help. So then it kind of demotivates us at times, until years later we look back like, wow, look at this person doing that, and okay, well, I could have do it too. And we often start at a later age. So how do we keep the youths motivated?
Okay.
We'll take one response.
You know, sorry, I didn't hear your name through all of that. Ronnie. Okay. So Ronnie, I'm going to speak to you directly, okay? We're at this wonderful conference here today, okay? I was at a conference in LA one time, and basically I started to look to the people to my left and look to the people to my right at the conference and ask them what they do, yeah? The person to my left was a writer, right? I was a photographer at the time and a filmmaker, so I started to work with this writer. Yeah, the next person next to me was a musician. Okay, so basically we got together just from that conference, yeah, asking each other, find the people in your circle, okay, the people in your circle who are good at what they do, okay, whether it's a hairdresser, whether it's a writer, whether it's whatever, the people in your circle, okay, they're the people that you should turn to first. Make your own work, right? Don't go out asking for permission to make your own work. Make your own work and look for the people around you to help you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. Thank you for the insightful discussion. I know I wish we had more time, but I see my brother Lion keep pacing up and down. He's ready to jump on the stage, so we'll take our exit at this point in time. Thank you again.
Thank you, Kwame Arma, OBE, we need to chat. Simon Frederick, Keith Nurse, and of course, Orlando Romain. Thank you very much. I'd like to ask you to stand with me for just one moment. All right. So you're gonna follow some instructions. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Ooh, I can sing. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it and you really want to show it, if you're happy and you know it, do a dance. Beautiful. You may have your seats. It gives me great pleasure to introduce somebody I met last night. I told him I was going to practice my British accent. I think I could get an A-. It's been a while, hello. That hat would surely get me to the UK, and I will definitely have that British accent down packed. Ladies and gentlemen, an honorary fellow of the Royal Institute of British Architects for the contribution of architecture. You see, you have some people in your life that has downplayed their achievement. That one. Multidisciplinary artist, poet, and BBC radio presenter. One of the first associate artists of the Royal Burt Hall. All here. Make some noise for Lionheart King. Any poets in the house? If you're a poet in the house, make some noise. What are you touching my back for?
You say you met me last night? I'm joking. How's everyone doing? We good? Now, I need some energy. As a performer, as an artist, you can tell from my pronunciation, I want some energy. Are we good? Thank you. Made me feel loved today. Listen, I am from England, from the UK, and I really, really appreciate being back home. You know, every time I've come back, I've been called English boy. Now it's Lionheart Cape, so I feel like I'm really, really loved today. You guys are going to essentially treat me as your guinea pig. As an artist, I'm going to show you the next 13 years of my career. Some people think that you blow up in a month, in 2 years. For me, it took me 13 years to get to the point where I can retire one of my family. You know, like there's so many levels to this, And don't let social media think it's gonna happen in a month. It takes dedication, resilience, passion, and desire, right? There's a lot of questions that I want, you guys to ask me, but I will say this. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Many of us don't actually come back to Grenada enough. For you to actually see us in the flesh, take advantage of the mic. Whenever someone gives you an opportunity to say, hey, you want to ask me a question? Write them down now. Otherwise, you're going to be sending me an email that I'm not going to see. You're going to DM me, and I might not be following you to see it, all right? So make sure you ask the questions while we're here. All right, so I'm a multidisciplinary artist. I've done various TED Talks, various campaigns. I've been around the world. I've done all this, but had a beginning. Just like every single one of you, we have a start. And there's too many of us that are scared to make the start and then scared to make the momentum. All I want you guys to learn from me today is we're going to break down my career, if this clicker will work. Ooh. The clicker don't want to work. Someone come and help me with this clicker, please. We're going to break down my career into a variety of stages. I'm going to show you the obstacles, and rather than tell you what to do, I'm going to show you how I overcame it so that you can take the genetic code out of my success and apply it to your life. Is that cool? Perfect. All right, so once we get this sorted out, I'll throw you on to the next slide. So many of us start in a place where we're not good enough, right? How many people felt like they woke up in the morning and they were a great artist? Put your hands up. Like 5 of you. Okay, I rate you. Okay, celebrities. It took so many, hours of experience. They say it takes 10,000 hours. I'm 35 years old. I've spent probably 20,000 and beyond. I am very insatiable. My brothers know me. I go in. If I'm at work, I'm looking at what storyboards I can write, what poems I can write, who can I market it to, what person do I need to network with. I'm doing it all whilst I'm working. If you're doing something that you're really, really passionate about, you will find time. Just like if you have kids, you're going to find time for your kids, right? If you have a relationship, you want to have a little fun, you're going to find time for your partner. Anything that you passionately want to do, you will find the time or orchestrate the time to develop that energy. We still haven't got the clicker working. Can you guys press the next slide for me? Would that work? Give me a show of hands in the back. Yes? Awesome. Okay, so in 2010, we're going to just keep it rolling regardless. In 2010, you guys got open mics here, right? Cool. In 2010, I had flat hair, level 1 shape. Can you press the next slide, please? Bam, you can barely see me. I had a do-rag on, like you can barely see me. I had a woolly hat on, a jumper that was a hand-me-down. I had no money in my pocket, but I said, I want to do this poetry thing. This is me leaving university after studying architecture and saying to my dad, who's an architect, Dad, I want to be a poet full-time. You can imagine the stress. Like, he's got dreads. His dreads didn't fall out, but his dentures did. Like, he was very stressed at that time. But he said to me, as long as you have the degree in education, I'm going to let you live your life. You've got a plan B. But to me, there was no plan B. It was only plan A. I wanted to prove that my dream was possible, plausible, and profitable as well. If you tell anyone, I don't know about Grenada, if you tell someone I'm going to be a poet, they're going to think, oh, you're going to struggle. You're not going to be a husband material. I'm not going to want to date you. Like, there's so many pressures socially about, oh, you're going to be an artist. How much you're going to sell your art for? Oh, you're going to be a dancer. Who wants to dance and pay you for that money? I thought, right, I'm going to be a poet, and I'm going to show you I can make much, much, much more money than a parent or a celebrity could. That was my goal initially. But to do that, I had to be a top-level quality, right? You know, they say cream rises to the top. I wanted to show everyone I would be the best. If not one of the top 3, I would be the best. And it sounds egotistical to some people, but when you're in certain rooms, and my brother Simon and Kwame will know this, there is a certain level of intellect and the way we, articulate ourselves that we know this person is going to be successful. By the way they talk about this, by the way they breathe into success. I was telling everyone, wait until I'm a successful poet. Can you press the next slide for me, please? The next one, please. Bam. Now, I look better there, don't I, right? You see the fade? I was putting effort in. I had a little Batman sideburn. That was terrible. Oh, my goodness. At this point, branding was important for me. I'd been performing for 2 years, running around to every show. I remember I was broke. I was asking my friends for money so I could jump on a bus to go to a show. If there was a show I wanted to perform at, I would find a way to get there, and I wasn't being paid. For 2 years straight, I just wanted people to know how good I could be at a specific skill or discipline. And some of us say, oh, if they're not going to pay me, I'm not going to do it. I could see the potential in the paycheck later on. Some of us have pressures. I get that. But for me, I was thinking about the next 10 years from now. I met a friend he's a billionaire. We was talking about, doing some work together. And he said, oh, Lion, we're going to do a vinyl. And I was like, none of my friends buy vinyls. He goes, my friends buy vinyls. He's like, oh, we'll sell it for £100. I said, none of my friends are going to buy a vinyl for £100. He goes, listen, in the next 20, 30 years, I may die, but you'll be still making money from my work that I've done with you. He's thinking 30 years from now. Some of us are only thinking about next week or next year. He's thinking that far ahead. So as artists, we need to learn how to develop and invest the quality in the skills and disciplines that we learn. And at this point, I was like, I'm going to be Usher as a poet. Like, this is the vision. Work with me here, all right? I might not have the physique, but I was dreaming big, all right? Can we press the next slide, please? Now, at some point, competition kicks in. And I don't know what level that you're at in terms of your artistry, your creativity. Thank you so much, beloved. I appreciate you. Let me just double check it works. Yes, thank you. Give it up for the tech, please. Give it up for them. Now, at this point, this is where we call, like in the business curve, saturation. And there are many people at this point that were jumping on YouTube, creating a strong following, which I did not have. And I said to myself, if they're going to start getting poetry commissions, poetry shows, because they've got videos, I need to start doing videos. I need to start following what works rather than trying to innovate from nothing and then wait for that to prove itself to be profitable. If they're doing videos, I'm going to do videos, but my way. And once, we always think about how do we charge more money? Has anyone got an issue with how much they charge for their art? People talking about negotiation. Every single video I put up, my price went up. That was my rule. If I'm going to invest in a video, you're going to invest in me the next time you see me. You have to continuously push people to say, this is worth something. This is of a quality value. Now, this is a very, very provocative thought, but I'm going to share it with you anyway. If you want to question me about it, I'm open to it. A friend of mine in New York. Now, people from America, New York, they have a very specific way of how they approach business. From the UK and London, it's very different. Here in Grenada, I'm assuming the same. And he said to me, he's like, Lion, poor people are aware of the value in their work. Rich people are aware of the value in their name. And through that, I questioned him, like, what do you mean? He's like, well, if you put a brand on something, Starbucks, McDonald's, its value to anyone increases. I'm going to spend £5 there because that's McDonald's. This is Louis Vuitton. This is et cetera, et cetera. The name means so much more to you than the craftsmanship. Most of us don't know what craftsmanship goes into a fancy watch, but we know it's a brand. We know the brand is worth something. We know if we go into a particular store and we have a Rolex on, someone's like, ooh, you got a Rolex. They don't even know how many years it took to put the Rolex together, all right? So we need to start working on our brand name, not just the craft. And at this point, I wanted everyone in London, in the UK, to know who Lionheart was, all right? I wanted them to know the brand. All right. There's a glass ceiling at every single level. And you notice this is 4 years have passed, all right? And for 4 years, I've been performing over and over at open mics. I haven't been getting paid. This is one of the first relatively big paychecks that I got. And the reason I got this is because I studied my competition. Wherever they would perform, I would go and I would network. Whoever their manager was, I would go and make sure I did some research and studied who their agent was. I would study who their publicist was. I would study who gave them a job. I would study it all to the point where I know them. I know them in and out. I know what opportunities came based on what they actually put out into the world. Some of us think we only need to focus on ourselves. If I know why Usain Bolt was the fastest in the world, I want to study him. I want to know what diet he's eating. I want to know what camp he's training at. We need to start really looking at the people who are winning so that we can win too. A lot of us may be looking at, our cultural background and say, I want to be just like this fellow Grenadian. I want to be like this fellow Trinidadian or this St. Lucian. I started looking at the people, irrespective of my hometown, who are winning big in poetry. There were people doing tours for £50,000 for poetry. At this time, I was probably charging like £30 for a performance, maybe £100 for a performance, compared to them charging £20,000. I wanted that, all right? That, I could be husband material at $20,000. I can't be husband material at £100, all right? So we move forward. At this point in my career, it looks like I'm celebrating, and I was. But shows were dying, right? Put your hands up if you're a poet or performer. Anyone who's a performance poet or artist, right? They get to a point where you actually want to be booked for something, but the show may stop working. There might be not enough people that come through the door. And here's the obstacle, and here's the obstacle that I was faced with. Do I stop? Because there's no more shows. There's no more demand. No one wants to go to a show and see a poet anymore. Or do I create my own platform so that no one can fire me and tell me I can't be a poet anymore. That was the decision I had. It sounds very easy. Oh yeah, you can just start a business. It now meant that that was my full-time job. I had to make such an audience that was strong enough to pay X amount every single month without fail so that I could perform and people would see me and I'll develop an audience every single month. I did that for 7 years. And every single month my event was sold out. The event was sold out because I learned how to be a creative people pleaser. And people say that like it's a bad thing. Like you're in a relationship, like, oh, I don't want to date someone who's a people pleaser. They know how to make you happy. I wanted to ensure if you came into my show, my performance, you left saying, Lionheart is sick. Or do you know what? I felt so good. And I know there are people in relationships that came to my show and they only felt good in a relationship at my show. So I said, cool, I got something good. I'm onto something really good. We need to learn how to please our audience by also learning how to please ourselves. And many of us, we spoke about insecurity and the doubt that we have, the anxiety that we may have. A lot of that comes because we're not experienced enough. If we do the same thing every single day for a year, we'll pretty much become a professional in it, right? But many of us dabble. We might do a little bit of poetry today, then I got to work tomorrow. We might write a book, next week and then try to edit it a year later. We need to develop things consistently. And there are always obstacles. The reason I'm showing you this is because I always found a way outside of the obstacle, all right? We can look at it as though it's a paragon of virtue that's so perfect I can't even defeat it, or we can be rebellious. We can be resilient, we can be relentless, and figure out a creative way. Don't just be a creative artist for the art's sake, be a creative artist for your career's sake, all right? So, see all those happy faces? That should be your audience. That should be your consumer base, all right? Whoa, Lord, let me get into this one. All right, I look like a madman. I'm not going to lie to you. I look really, really crazy. As a performer, I like to go into a space where many poets are very delicate. They're very eloquent, all right? They like to serenade an audience. I wanted to come into a room, and if you're not crying, shocked, or shivering, I didn't do my job. I wanted to really shake the roots of what we call our emotional psyche, all right? There's a point in our lives where a lot of us, we're scared from how we feel, Like Kwame spoke about the excavation process. I feel like poets are like archaeologists of our secret emotions, right? They tap into things that we didn't even think was there. And that's what I wanted to achieve. I didn't just want to be the entertaining poet that came and then everyone starts clicking, oh, yeah, you're good, yeah. I wanted to be legendary in how I made you feel and how you remembered that feeling the next time you saw me. The next time someone said to you, oh, we're going to go to a poet show, I want you to say, is Lionheart going to be there? And that takes another level of dexterity, another level of dedication, and a strong competitive edge. There's one thing that I don't really talk about too much, but I am very competitive. If anyone came on today and said, I'm a poet and performed, I would say I'm performing. I would want to show you just how passionate I am about my art and about my heart, all right? And I think a lot of us, again, we shy away from showing the world just how great we can be. When celebrities do it, we like their posts on Instagram. We reshare it. When we do it, our friends don't do that. Let's start being the people that reshare our own love for ourselves, all right? You'll go so much further. So, they got to a point where London wasn't big enough for my creative ego, sorry, all right? I can be very egotistical, but I remember Kevin Hart said, one of his mentors spoke to him and said, it's great that you're funny in Philadelphia, but what about Hong Kong? If you're only funny, talented in your own city, you aren't working hard enough, and you're actually creating a glass ceiling for your career, for your relationships, for your network. I could tell you that I know people in Japan, Oslo, Africa, throughout the world because I'm so intent on exploring the other cultures and creativities that allow me to say, all right, let's do something creative and collaborative together. Let's not just stay here mentally and physically. Let's put our art into places where we can really test our ability. This is everyone know who Russell Simmons is? Right? Incredible phenomenon, iconic music label, right? He is someone who put on an event called All Deaf Poetry, all right? Legends have been there. I performed at this stage because of a relationship that I developed, right? I made sure that I connected with someone who saw enough value in me, enough ego and confidence to say, all right, we're going to put you on this slot. There's a queue that probably would wrap around this whole entire facility to get into this building. Till this day, that is one of my highest views. I think it has 500,000 views on it for a poem. Being in the States capitalized and catalyzed my power as a poet. When I came back to London, all of a sudden, I'm international now. I'm not just a homegrown talent. I'm someone who's took his own money to fly somewhere else to show what my art can do. And it found out that I was more loved in the States than I was loved at home. And I thought, well, why am I investing so much into the people that are around me that don't invest back into me? And that's when I made a clinical shift. As an artist, sometimes it's very hard. The obstacle here was, do I stay where I'm at, or do I think bigger than my circumstances? And as a creative artist, again, think of creative solutions for challenging conditions. Every single one of us, unless we're a millionaire, billionaire, there's a challenging circumstance in our lives. It's thinking about what is the creative solution to overcome that. And again, I will say this about, creatives in the States. There is an unsatiable desire to be the best. A friend of mine said, he went to New York and his cousin was like, are you the fastest in England? And he was like, no, but I can run. He's like, well, if you're not the fastest in England, I don't want to run you against you. He only wanted faces the best, all right? If you weren't the best, even if you weren't the best, say you're the best so I can feel like I've actually achieved something in competing against you. I came back to London with a completely different energy. I wanted to create a book that, sold when I was sleeping. I wanted to, again, do architectural work, and this is where the multidisciplinary leverage came in. In the beginning, you saw I was just a poet, right? I started doing open mics for free. After 7 years, I'm a presenter, I'm developing workshops, I'm, doing voiceover work, I'm creating residency applications, which I'm going to show you here. This was a pivotal point in my career coming back from the States. I couldn't just be a poet that was about performing and wanting to be the best. I had to have impact, cultural impact, psychological impact, and I had to have legacy. I don't want you to just remember me as a great poet anymore. I want you to remember me as someone who impacted society, who impacted psychology. And this is where, people say, well, how did you devise this merger of bringing poetry, performance poetry and page poetry, with the world and landscape of architecture, all right? And they sound quite far between. They're both artistic disciplines, but how do you bring them into the same place? Has anyone ever been depressed before? Had a really, really bad day, anxiety, had heartbreak, couldn't get over it for a couple of years, decade? Yep, cool. Everyone's been in a dark space, but some of you still going through it, I'm sorry. Like, a lot of us have been in a dark space before. And for me personally, I'm very self-aware, all right? I'm a very sensitive man. I'm aware about what makes me feel a certain way. And some of us aren't, and it's a skill you have to learn. But there used to be a point where I would get chastised for being a sensitive man. Now I use it as a superpower, all right? And at the point where I was depressed, I used to go to specific architectural buildings or landscapes in London, all right? Let's say that, I don't know, someone punched me today and I started to cry. I would go to this place and spiritually, mentally, psychologically, I would feel relief. So there was something in that poetic design that was enabling me to control my emotional disposition, all right? Some of us go to alcohol. Some of us go to smoking cigarettes. Some of us listen to music. Mine was being in an architectural design place, all right? When we think about the place that we're in right now, this has been designed in such a way to make you feel like there's an important sense of grandeur by whoever's on the stage. There are architectural, neurological design processes that teach people to poetic quality of feeling good. That's a quite overwordy one. Basically, I started a research process to understand why I had an effect with architecture, mental health, through the communication of poetry. Now, go into an architecture practice, and I'm saying, hey, I'm a poet. I've been to New York. I've done books. I want to do a residency with you. Doors were closed on me, all right? Because I didn't seem like I knew what I was talking about until I knocked on this door, and that door went into another door, and that door went into another door, and people kept on saying yes to me. I probably approached maybe 60 to 70 architectural practices in the space of a month, all right? Looking back now, I probably should have spent 100 times, but I said, I'm going to continue knocking until I find someone who's interested in what I do. And every time I speak about it, I got more passionate. I'm like, no, I want to impact someone. I want someone to feel good. There's sense of value and worth in this work. I am going to convince someone that I'm not just a great poet, that I can make an impact globally through this nation in the UK. This was a company called Grimshaw Architects, right? They worked on airports in the States. They are global. They have headquarters in pretty much every single country around the world that is of a high level echelon. They took me on, and I didn't charge them for the work. I said, I want to spend a week to 2 weeks with your practice, with your high-level architects and designers, doing the program and residency that I designed, okay? It took 3 months for me to convince them, but they wanted to do it. They just didn't know how it would work, but they said there's something in this. After a week of doing this, to tell a lie, after the first day, every single person who came to my workshops, who came to my residency one-to-ones, who came to my blueprints, they all sent the longest email in their life to say, this is why I love architecture. That was after day 1. After the week, they called me back 2 weeks later and said, hey, Lion, would you want to do this every single month next year? I said, yeah. They said, I would pay you for this as well. We understand the value now. We want to pay you every single month. I said, cool. They paid me the top value. I was very happy. After 3 months, the New York office heard about what I was doing. They said, can we fly Lion over to do the same thing in New York with us? What do you think I told them? I was like, yeah, just pay me, right? Just put the money in my bank account. One thing that I did for free catapulted because they could see the value. Some of us don't do things because they say, oh, do you know what? They're not going to pay me. There's a value in the work, but sometimes you have to tease the value into a company, into an organization, into a bank, so that they can say, wow, I see the ROI, I see the return on investment now. Many of us need to think again 3 to 4 to 5 years from now, because this same company I'm working with in 2023, all right? And this was in 2018. So after New York, I told you I don't want to be just known in the same place. What did I do? I went to New York, but I also went to Japan. Why did I go to Japan? People who I've met in the Western world tend to not, yeah, gotta be careful. I got some sponsors and brands. There's a way in which we look at the world from a Western perspective that has a level of supremacy, all right? And I didn't want to get pigeonholed by my own work in the UK or in the States. I wanted to find out what people around the world from different cultural backgrounds, from different historical references could teach me. I was still a student at this point. So I said, where else to go but Japan? Japan blew out 2 years of research for me in just 2 weeks. And it was an investment. I said to myself that I'm going to get something out of this that is irrespective of the money. I'm going to get a value that is so important, people are going to start to really say, this is an important piece of poetry with architecture. Fast forward, words start to go around. Hey, this guy Lionheart is really, really powerful. The BBC reached out to me, and till this day, I have a BBC show every Friday and Saturday. That was 2019. 4 years later, from doing this architectural research in Oslo, New York, Japan, Tokyo, all these places, the Royal Institute of British Architects heard about the work I was doing. There is a list of 250 names in the last 200 plus years. My name is now on that because of my contribution, all right? My dad is Grenadian, my mom is Grenadian. My dad's an architect in Grenada. My granddad is an architect in Grenada, around Grenville. My dad never thought that the Cape name would ever be respected to that level of degree or pedigree in the UK. I now feel like I've done my dad a service by putting our family name, the Grenadian name, back into the culture to say, hey, they've contributed something so special. He now has to add a prefix, a suffix on the end of my name. So I'm now Rael Lionheart Cape, Honorary Fellow of Royal Institute of British Architects, all right? And I want to make this very clear. I can design buildings. I can look and cut a section through this building and show you what it looks like and why it works a certain way. This is through the art of poetry. Once you understand the genetics of your art form, you can unravel it and apply it to other disciplines. Those other disciplines add more value to your work, all right? They add more value to your craft, and more importantly, they add more value to your brand. Some of us get really stuck on saying, I'm going to only do one thing. Anyone who's spoken on the mic today, I said, I'm this, I teach, I this. Be a multi-hyphenate, but learn how to amalgamate both of those disciplines together and add more money, more value, more cultural impact to your brand, all right? So when you start getting a name for yourself, this is 2021, the second year of the pandemic, right? We were in lockdown. And I said to myself, similar to the first gentleman who spoke today, which is go to where the money is. How many people are happy with the amount of money they're making as a creative? Put your hand up. Lord have mercy. No one put their hand up. And I remember, some people say, there's education everywhere. I would go to YouTube, to Vimeo, to all the places that had powerful speakers to get access to their intellectual capital. All right. Every single book I read, every single article I read, every single YouTube would teach me something about how to navigate difficult times in business, creativity, and other stuff. When everyone was worried about getting work in 2020, I knew everyone was going to be at home. So what did I do? I went on the platforms that allow people to reach out. I went on LinkedIn. I went on Facebook. I went on Instagram. I went everywhere to show people I am someone that you should know about. Let's talk about some work. It took a year. Everyone was worried about their families. Everyone worried about their own life, their own health. in the back of my mind, as well as staying safe, I said, I want to think about the next 3 to 5 to 10 years from now, not just the right now. And after a year of doing that investigation, Bentley came and offered me a commission. From that commission, the Royal Albert Hall, which is over 151 years in the UK, asked me to perform in front of 5,000 people plus. From that thank you, this is one of the most royal heritage sites for performance, right? Marcus Garvey, all the legends have performed in this building. I became one of the first associate artists in 151 years to be an associate artist there, to create anything I wanted to do around poetry, architecture, and mental health. As you notice, we're in the same year now. Things start to escalate after a certain amount of time, but it took me time, it took me dedication, it took me resilience, all right? This is a company called vgh'n. They have millions of followers for design. The design world started to really wrap me up and say, we want to use you. You are of value to us. We want to have you as something who is an icon in the design and architecture world. This post, I don't know how many millions of people saw it, got me so much work because people said this person is serious, they know their work, their brand is strong, and their accolade history gives me confidence that I can put them in a place they may have never done something before, but I know their confidence is going to bring them through with their expertise. After that, I won a competition, right? And again, how do I work with architects? I can go into this in a bit more detail, but I don't want to geek out on every single person in the room. But we devised something to help people with mental health during lockdown situations, all right? And imagine, we're talking about AI. This is how technology can work with artists, all right? We had a mapping of a room that would respond to our voice, but would also respond to our emotional mental health whilst we were there. Each room we would move in, it would navigate and would map directions for us to go in to feel better, and also it would have an organic well-being biophilic quality, which is of nature, all right? So anywhere in your room would have a visual imprint or hologram of nature to soothe you throughout different points in the day. With this, I gave a poetic collaboration where you could put specific binaural headphones on, right, which is like a 360 sound, and you could hear me navigating the experience of walking around this space. That won an award. After that, the Queen's Jubilee, all right? I was commissioned to work with one of the highest level architects, Thomas Heatherwick Architects, to do another collaboration with their Tree of Trees. This was outside of Buckingham Palace, all right? And this is a collaboration I did as a poet with a design and architectural practice. Moving on from that, again, I'm working with architects, I'm working with designers, I'm working with dancers now, I'm working with visual artists. I said, I can push this poetry thing even further. Where can I go with this? All right, I want to be a visual artist. I've done videos before, but I want this to be cinematic. I want it to stand for something. I want to shake up the world. How can I put architecture, dance, visual arts, poetry, performance, fashion into one place and sell that as a creative commodity to people, right? What part of their mental psyche can I tap into as a poet? Because after 12 years, I should know how to communicate enough to resonate with your feelings, all right? That's a film that's coming out in London towards the end of this year, right? In an exhibition that's probably going to last a month or more. Everyone know who Cartier is? Cartier, the brand, the jewelry brand. I ended up getting reached out to by Cartier to do another collaborative commission for installation, and they flew me out to Paris. Everything is starting to tick over. Next week, I'm flying in the morning, but next week I'll be going to Venice to do my first visual art architectural installation for the Biennale. It took me, and I want to make this very, very clear, it took me so many obstacles, hopefully I'll walk you through each and every single obstacle, to realize these obstacles were giving me an opportunity to think better than my circumstance. My circumstance weren't great. Shows were dying. People were more popular than me. I didn't have the fashionable outfit you see me with today. There were so many things going against me, but I thought, how can I use this as a trajectory, as a trampoline to bounce myself to the next step? Many of us find these obstacles in our lives. They could be your best friends. They could be your parents, your husband, your wife. They could be right next to you right in this minute. You need to find the people who believe in your vision. I'm not just an artist, I'm a visionary. I had to really see myself different every single obstacle. And that's the power obstacles can do. Thank you for my TED Talk. If there is one more final thing I can say, and there's so many people that will tell you what to do but not how to do it, I will be here. If you want to speak to me specifically about your career, your discipline, and how I can be a support to you in any particular way, let me know, and I'm happy to answer those questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lionheart. And I just want to mention, you mentioned the Biennale Festival. Grenada is in that festival. We have film. Last year we did something. We have films in that film festival. Oh, I'm a part of one of those films. And we have our Shotney or Shakespeare Mass there in that festival. So thank you, Lionheart. You've been a great, great inspiration to a lot of us. And I know you'll have a lot of people swarming you. So thank you very much for that TED Talk. I want to break for 5 minutes just to invite Digicel to make a presentation. We talked about the cooperative help, the cooperative contribution to the arts, and I think Digicel will be supporting more artists. So we need to break for 5 minutes. We'll not break to go home or go in the bathroom. But Digicel will come and then we'll have our final TED Talk for the day. So I'd like to welcome on stage Ms. Jennifer Walter, the head of Digicel Business, to make a 5-minute presentation. And I will be that principal sitting there, marking time, watching the clock.
Thank you very much. A pleasant good afternoon, everyone. Please allow me to speak on the protocol already established. It is indeed a pleasure to be here this afternoon. As head of Digicel Business, I am honored to share with you our vision for enhancing the creative economy in Grenada through the power of connectivity and mobile technology. The National Cultural and Creative Industries Conference, Unleash, marks a significant milestone in Grenada's journey towards harnessing the potential of creative industries. It is clear that these industries can contribute immensely to our economy and drive sustainable growth. At Digicel, we recognize the transformative power, of connectivity and mobile technology in unlocking opportunities for creativity, entrepreneurship, and economic development. Connectivity is the cornerstone of the digital age we live in. It empowers individuals, communities, businesses, so that they can connect, collaborate, and innovate. By providing reliable, high-speed mobile network, Digicel plays a crucial role in bridging the digital divide and ensuring that our creative talents can thrive in a connected world. Our role in enhancing the creative economy in Grenada begins with enabling access to information and knowledge. Through our mobile services, we bring the world to the fingertips of artists, designers, cultural practitioners in Grenada. We provide access to online platforms, educational resources, and global marketplaces, empowering them to showcase their talent to a wider audience and explore new avenues for growth. Moreover, we understand that this type of industry is not confined to the individual artist alone. It requires a holistic ecosystem comprising educators, policymakers, entrepreneurs, and legal professionals. Digicel is committed to collaborating with these stakeholders to create an enabling environment to create for the creative industries to flourish. We actively involve in supporting initiatives to promote digital literacy, entrepreneurship, and innovation. We offer training programs and workshops to equip creative professionals with skills needed to succeed in the rapidly evolving landscape. Through partnership with educational institutions, we aim to foster talent development and nurture the next generation of creative leaders. And these are the people like yourselves here today. Today, we offer commitment not only as a service provider, but as a partner. Furthermore, Digicel is dedicated to providing platforms for you, the locals, and the designers to showcase your work. We understand the importance of visibility and exposure in attracting opportunities and investment. Through our digital platforms and partnership with cultural events, we strive to amplify the voices and talent of our creative community. In addition to connectivity, we also recognize the power of mobile technology in enabling financial inclusion and access to markets. Digicel is actively exploring partnership and solutions to leverage mobile payments and e-commerce to facilitate the growth of creative businesses. We aim to remove barriers to entry, streamline transactions, and empower our creatives to reach a broader customer base locally and globally. Ladies and gentlemen, the future of Grenada creative economy is bright, and Digicel is fully committed to playing a pivotal role in its growth and development. We believe by leveraging connectivity, mobile technology, and strategic partnership, we can unlock the full potential of creative industries, promote economic empowerment, and create sustainable opportunities for our people. Together, let us continue to foster an environment where creativity thrives, where innovation flourishes, and where Grenadian creatives shine on the global stage. I invite you to visit our booth outside, where our team will have some special offerings for you. We will offer you as much as 50% discount on connectivity and mobile to the members of the creative industry. I thank you.
I was actually waiting for that part. And I was waiting for her to say, if you look under your chairs. And you looking, but you know nothing on there. Thank you so much, Digicel. Just remember to check out the booth. I already got a little gift. Oh, Lord, I probably should have said so. But I already got a gift, so check out the booth, and there might be a gift for you as well. Or maybe under your seats. Tomorrow. I'll have them put something tomorrow. I'll negotiate. All right, so we've come to the final presenter. And we want to pump her up a little bit. It's the last one. It's been a long day. Let's make some noise and bring on to do a final TED Talk. You see, she's laughing already. That's good. Tanya Larson, Director of Marketing Strategies. And listen, this lady is a special lady. Tanya Larson. Let me give all you a little background on Tanya Larson. She is currently the Director of Marketing Strategies for Caribbean and Gospel at AudioMac Caribbean. Yeah, y'all should be going on Instagram and following her immediately. Larson currently oversees Caribbean and Gospel curation as well as the content and events. Ms. Larson previously served as promotions manager at VP Records, working on artist projects such as Egyptian, Busy Signal, and Ricky Blaze, just to name a few. Prior to VP Records, Tanya was an intern in promotions department at Sony Music and eventually was hired to work in marketing. Make some noise for Tanya Larson.
That was a good one. Oh, that clicker is there? All right, cool. All right, hello. Man, that light is bright. God, let me move away from it. Oh man, good afternoon, all that other good stuff. I'm not a creator. Well, I would say I wouldn't consider myself a creator, meaning I'm not an artist. I wish I could sing. I wish I could dance. I wish I was like artistic with my hand. I'm not. I'm just a lover of music, and all my life I've worked behind the scene with music. So one of my goals always was to help artists that tend not to get paid attention to and just help push their career along the way. So right now I work at AudioMac. AudioMac is a streaming platform that's artists and creators driven. We're new ourselves, meaning we're new, like we're not like Apple, we're not like Spotify, we're not like YouTube. Well, we're just new. So we've been around probably like a little under 10 years. We're pretty big now in Africa. When I started AudioMac, Africa basically was my baby child. I heard a lot of people talking about Africa and in the streams. We'll get into that a little bit. Oh, thank you. We'll get into that a little bit later. But what I want to do is that I want to actually show you guys something AudioMac basically put together for creators, just so they could understand like how the music industry works. Because what tends to happen is that what's going on now is that streaming, you really don't get, yes, of course, I work for AudioMac, streaming's number one, yeah, but you really don't make that much money off of streaming. You have to tap into different sources of revenues in order for you basically to make money all around. But at the same time, you have to learn how to utilize and push streaming and have basically these DSPs of what we are, like basically work for you. After this clip, I'm gonna just like break down exactly what a DSP is, what I think a lot of artists are not doing. When I go into a lot of these markets, I hear a lot of artists coming to me and saying, but why my music is not here, or why I'm not here, or why it's not there. I will break down and run down everything of what I think from my perspective of what artists should do. It's the volume.
Typically, music creation starts with the genuine love of making music. But at the end of the day, everyone needs to eat. We know that streaming dominates the world of music consumption. But knowing how to monetize and profit from your sound is a whole different ballgame. Between royalties from your streams, merch, performances, and synchronization, there are more than enough ways to collect your coins. Bookings. One of the most important ways to make money as an artist is by performing. Whether it's a festival or a small hometown show, securing the performance bag is a must. Booking agents are able to get artists on shows, but they can only do so much without the artists having their own following. Building a loyal fan base is key to getting booked for concerts. Streaming royalties. Each song is broken into two entities: the publishing, also known as the copyright, and the master recording. The master recording is the actual recorded song and the associated rights that come with it, where the copyright is the actual words and/or notes that were written for the song. We'll get more into this in future videos. Merchandise. Everyone wants to see their name on a shirt, right? Well, even if not, selling merch that relates to your brand is a major key to making money as an artist. Merchandise is not only clothes, but pretty much anything else that you can think of. Just be creative and apply your merch ideas to all trinkets and gadgets you may like. It's easier than ever to sell your merch online, but one of the best opportunities will always be at a show right after you rock the crowd. Music synchronization, often known as sync. Getting your music on TV or in a commercial is a dream to most artists, but it's also a great way to make some money from your music beyond streaming. This may seem like a long shot to newer artists, but there are multiple ways to get your music in the hands of music directors and ad agencies. Do some research on who's choosing the music in some of your favorite shows, and see if you can figure out where they find their music. That's just a few ways to make some money as an artist. But get creative, and the opportunities will be endless. For more info on this and other artist resources, download the AudioMac app for free and keep moving music forward.
All right. So I'm gonna stress basically what a DSP is. So a DSP basically is like a digital store. It's like saying the new age of like Tower Records. I think what else used to be? Any store that used to actually sell physical CDs or physical tapes, that's basically what DSP basically is. That's what DSP is in a nutshell. It's a digital streaming platform. What tends to happen is that a lot of artists tend to shy away from it, but they don't understand that not having your music on DSPs basically limit your art and limit your music from not getting played basically throughout the world. I would say the first thing I tell a lot of artists to do is research your streaming platforms. Of course, I'm gonna say AudioMac is number one because they cut my check, but outside of it, there's AudioMac, there's Pandora, there's Tidal, there's Boomplay, there's Spotify, there's so much streaming. I would say right now, the last I checked, there was over at least 100 streaming platforms. What you guys should do is actually hone in and find out what streaming platforms cater to your music. So the first thing I would say is that, like for AudioMac, I tell people a lot, our demo is between the age of 15 and 26. Not telling other people who are older not to put it on AudioMac, but just know AudioMac is more youth-driven, so they may like certain type of music. And our listeners are more aggressive, where meaning if we put up a song they don't like, they will email us or tell us, take this crap down. Whereas in Pandora, which is more, I would consider more passive listeners, those for people who are like basically around the age of 35 and a little bit upper, I shouldn't say upper, older, that's more passive listeners. That's people who just want to hit play and have the music play out for them. Tidal is more like that, I say 25 to 35, hip hop, Vibes Cartel, like kind of Movado back in the days type thing, Biggie. They have a certain audience that they cater to. Apple are more passive listeners, but they're passive listeners where you have to feed them with playlists. So it's like, I'm just giving you guys a couple of examples. Boomplay is big in Africa, but they have like a certain target they go for. I would say as artists, music artists, your first thing is to make a list of like the top 50, I'm not even pushing it, DSPs, and basically see what they're looking for. I heard a couple of artists here say like, not downplaying them or nothing, like, hey, how do I do this? Or no one is paying attention to me. One thing I tell people, I shouldn't want it more than you. If you really want to get your music to me, there's so many ways to get in contact with me. You could hound me down, drive it in, harass me. Not only me, I have other peers who would say artists would say they don't pay attention to them, and that's not the truth. I'm not gonna go somewhere and look for you. You can't tell me you're the best artist out there. Prove it to me. Streaming is one way, and the reason I say that is because a lot of people may say, oh, we come from a small place. That doesn't mean anything. Gather up your people around on the ground and start getting them to support your music. Push them to somewhere. Maybe you don't like AudioMac because of the colors. Push them to somewhere. Push them to SoundCloud. Push them to YouTube. Push it somewhere and gather up your numbers. At the end of the day, it's a numbers game out there. I fight daily with my superiors because if I'm not bringing in numbers, they will not generate income into anything. They don't care how creative it is. They don't care how core it is or whatever it is. If there's not generating numbers, it doesn't equal income. I'm going to use Africa for an example. About 5 years ago, I was doing, one of my areas was Africa. Because what I do at AudioMac, they get me to develop genres. At that moment, Afrobeats was not big, and let me stress that. It was not big. Burna Boy has been out since 2012. Nobody knew that. WizKid been out for long. Mr. Easy been out longer. Patta Rankin been out longer. People don't know that. I'm going to tell you what African artists did that a lot of people don't know. They realized that they cannot fight the system, and people was just not going to play them on the radio. They fought them with numbers. What they did is actually had people on the ground who got together and was like, hey, stream my music. I'm not going to tell you all the numbers were legit now, but they will go out there and they'll have a whole bunch of little kids go out there and start pushing their music on the ground and start pushing their music online. What ends up happening, and I will say this is where corporate America kind of sucks, when they see numbers, they start paying attention and say, okay, what's that? We need to invest in that. The best thing that happened to Africa was COVID. During COVID, everybody was indoors and they was pushing and feeding that music. During that time, the Afrobeat started booming, where right now, Universal got an office in Africa, that they did it during COVID. Empire has an office in Africa that they did during COVID. A lot of the activities that happened is because, yes, they utilized their numbers and forced the masses. If people, we sit down and we figure out what that strategy is, yes, I get it. You may not have the numbers. But one thing the Caribbean has is impressions. I tell people, and I'm not downplaying Africa, If I tell you to come here and sing a song from 10 years ago from Africa, I guarantee you half of y'all couldn't sing me a song. If I tell you to sing me a song from the Caribbean, was it soca, dancehall, compa, blah, 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 no matter where you're from, you can stand here and you can sing it. That's one thing the Caribbean has, is that the culture is still there. It's just you have to figure out a way to package it and present it. Don't pay, in this case, take the numbers, make sure your ground is taken care of, and push that to the world. I have an issue with artists saying that, and then they manage as their best friend who's not professional. That's not good. Like, your manager doesn't answer the phone, he texts when he feels like it, and don't understand what the business is. I had a particular artist who asked me if AudioMac could sponsor the event. I said, sure, but what are you doing for me? Oh, you're not supporting the culture. No, it's not. Culture is not paying these bills. Let's negotiate with each other. You got to tell me what you're bringing to the platform, and I'm going to tell you what I can do for you. You'll be surprised with a lot of these corporations. You can get money from them, but you got to show them what they're getting from you. What's making you important for them to spend that money with them? If you show that, sky's the limit. So I'm going to keep my thing short, because a lot of the other people who came here, what's his name? Dr. Nurse, he did well. He touched on some topics that actually leaks onto DSPs. But with that being said, follow AudioMac. If you have any questions, I'll be here and around. Thank you.
Hila was standing by, watching the clock. Thank you so much, Tanya Lawson, Director at AudioMac, Director of Marketing. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a wonderful first day. Would you agree? Throughout the next few days, we will continue to explore the current state of Grenada's creative industries, identify the challenges and the opportunities that lie ahead, and seek innovative ways to propel our creative economy forward. We will engage in more thought-provoking discussions, attend enlightening workshops, witness captivating performances, and immerse ourselves in the vibrant artistic expressions that define Grenada. Give yourselves a round of applause and congratulations to you, my dear creatives, for attending and being present. Continue to network, and I'll see you back here tomorrow, 9 o'clock sharp. Have a good evening, everybody. Before you go, I want to remind you that there is a UE lecture this evening at 6 o'clock. So go grab yourself some dinner. There's some Wall Street is. It's right here at 6 o'clock, and it's on Women Intellectual Property by Justin Koo. Yes, I did say go grab yourself, and I'm advertising for Wall Street. There are food outlets on Wall Street. You can call Carry Bites. They'll deliver here as well. So see you back here at 6 o'clock for the UE lecture. Have a great evening, everybody. Thank you.